Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku became a husband? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. It happens by accident. It starts with him getting called out to a job alone. No sidekick, no assisting agency. Just him and the scummy piece of sheet he's going to wipe off the street. When he gets to the scene, it's obvious why this is a one-man job. The villain is pale and thin, a sickly green almost, and seems to simply be disturbing the peace. He's got a young girl by the arm and is shouting something Katsuki can't discern at her. People have gathered around the scene. It's a busy street, so this is to be expected, but no one is stepping in. There are a few people laying around the villain's feet with no visible injuries. The rise and fall of their chests tells Katsuki they're just unconscious, maybe even asleep, not dead. The crowd parts like water, relieved whispers of Ground Zero is here now, we'll be okay. Echoing through the bystanders. Katsuki lumbers forward, chest puffed, anger already radiating from his stance. Oi, fuckface. At Katsuki's words, the man's big head snaps up on his wiry neck and he grins with blood-stained teeth. A hero! He crows, like it's a shocking revelation. Here to save the day? Bile spits as he talks, caught between his smile and tongue. Katsuki sneers, bares his own sharp teeth. Here to F you up, that's for demon sure. The villain cackles as if there's glass in his throat. He steps back, drops the girl he was holding and lets her scurry off, before raising his arms, palms up for an imaginary cross. A misguided martyr if Katsuki's ever seen one. Come get me then. The challenge is too sweet to pass up, so Katsuki obliges. He blasts forward, both arms stretched behind him and heading straight for the man. At the last moment he drops one foot to the ground and pivots, reaches his left arm and swings wide, aiming to grab the man's neck. The villain ducks out of the way and Katsuki follows quickly, both careful to dance around the sleeping figures. As he continually swings and the man continually dodges, it begins to grate on him how frustratingly nimble the ugly fucker is. He's small and thin but quick on his feet. Katsuki has the advantage of speed and power. He should be able to apprehend him with no issue, but the man twists and turns and just barely evades his grasp. This continues for an impossible while. Katsuki sends a blast left and the man has already maneuvered to the right. He kicks up and the man drops low. The villain isn't attacking back, just dodging, which is somehow infinitely more infuriating. Katsuki has a deep hatred for fights of evasion like this. That's more Deku's strong suit. Move fast to wear down the villain and then knock them out cold. Katsuki prefers head-to-head altercations, not this pansy but dodging. Eventually Katsuki reaches his limit. Out of his already short patience, he makes a mistake. He lunges, going directly for the man and fatally confident in his ability to catch the slippery fucker. The villain takes the opportunity to dash out of the way with impossible speed and then turn on his heel, mocking Katsuki's pivot from earlier, ending up behind Katsuki as he smoothly rolls out of his lunge and to the ground. When he whips his head around, the villain is already there. He stands above Katsuki as he ends the roll in a crouch, and then grabs him by the chin with one hand. Katsuki's palm shoots up automatically, grabs the man's wrist with sparks lighting and nitroglycerin burning, but it's too late. The man smiles as if looking at a child. A thumb presses against Katsuki's forehead and his vision immediately blurs, black dots swirling in. His explosion dies out before it can be born, and his limp hand slides off the man's arm and to his side. He slouches like a puppet with his strings cut, held up only by the grasp on his chin. The last thing he registers is the man murmuring, "You're worthy of my blessing, aren't you? Rest now, it's the least I can do for you, strong one," into his ear, before he passes out completely. He wakes up to people shouting his name. Zero! Ground Zero, wake up! It takes him a moment to open groggy eyes, but when he does manage it, he comes face to face with a dark-skinned girl holding clear worry in her expression. He recognizes her as the young woman the villain had been holding onto earlier. The villain. Shooting up like a bullet, Katsuki's on his feet, searching for the threat and ready to tear its throat out. He doesn't really remember what happened. The fight, the dance, the fall, and then the man said something and what? Did he pass out? Was he knocked out or did he hit his head? It's blurry, as if shown through an undeveloped photograph, and he can't quite recall. When he turns back to the girl, her strikingly orange eyes are wide and glassy, tears threatening to fall. There are a few people behind her, and a few behind them, but no sign of the villain. The girl takes a hesitant step forwards and reaches for his arm. Perhaps it's meant to be a comforting gesture, but Katsuki steps back instinctively. He's still ragged on adrenaline and the viscous knowledge that he's lost a fight, that he let a villain get away. The villain? Where is he? Katsuki snarls out. He tries to rein in his temper, but it's too little too late. The girl flinches and takes 2 steps back. The people watching hold their breath and lean in with anticipation. Everyone loves a show. I'm sorry, sir. I don't know what you mean. Katsuki wrinkles his nose. The weird fucker I was fighting before. The one that had you by the DM and arm. He tries through gritted teeth, neatly ignoring around the part where he lost the fight. Where did he go? Confusion is written on the woman's face, but she responds as best she can anyway. I'm not sure. Ground zero, sir. Are you okay? You fell pretty hard. Katsuki tells himself that the words weren't intentionally condescending, but a familiar tick of indignation shoots through his gut and has him clenching his sweaty fists nonetheless. Right now he's got no villain and no victory. Just a crowd of his protectees that saw him lose horribly. He can feel his lungs clawing their way up his throat to suffocate him under the frustration of it all. Breathe, Katsuki reminds himself in a voice that sounds annoyingly like Deku's. Stay calm and act like the hero you are. So you didn't see where he went? The woman bites her lip anxiously. No, sir, she says. If Katsuki's not going to be able to find the villain here, then he should get out of this situation before the anger, exacerbated by the sticky self-hatred that always comes from a loss, consumes him and he loses his already shortened temper, interrogating the poor lady when she knows nothing won't help. So Katsuki manages a tight, "All right then," before realizing he should probably ensure her well-being is intact. He's a hero after all. Are you hurt? He tacks on, lackluster as it is. The lady hesitates, then looks down and dusts off her outfit. It's not ripped at all, just a bit rumpled, and there aren't any scrapes or bruises on her skin when she examines her arms and legs. She looks back up and shakes her head slowly, weary of Katsuki's demeanor. But, can you get home okay? His voice is calmer now. Still agitated, but as neutral as he can make it. Another soundless nod. Fing peachy, Katsuki growls under his breath. He turns to address the crowd. They shrink under his attention, but it doesn't faze him. Nothing to see here, so if you're not injured then you can leave. The crowd shifts in rippling waves amongst themselves, unsure how to proceed even with XPLCT directions, but after waiting an extra moment to ensure that there were no civilians harmed, Katsuki is gone. Shoving open the front door and storming into his own agency is perhaps a bit dramatic, but Katsuki isn't in the mood for hiding his feelings. Dirt falls off his heavy steps and mars the immaculate marble flooring as he stomps across the lobby. There's a few people he doesn't recognize milling about, chatting as they do their duties, but Katsuki pays them no mind. He's not, if ever, in the mood to socialize. A grunt to the busy receptionist, an acknowledging look to a frazzled intern, and he's on his way to the elevators that sit at the back end of the lobby. His office is quite a few stories up. It's impractical, to be honest, and the shitty old butt elevator never gets him to where he needs to be fast enough. Despite this, though, he loves his office for what it represents, the success and victory he claimed for himself in his field. That DMN little office is his, no one else's. He earned it with his own sweat, blood, and tears, and no one can take that away from him. It also helps that in his office, from the giant windows facing east, the view of the bustling city dozens of feet below is stunning. That office is in front of him now, as the elevator finally creaks to a stop and parts its heavy doors. He walks out, still fuming, and practically bodies his way through the thick oak door standing guard for his personal office. The fleeting thought that he should probably be more careful flits through his mind, but he ignores it. It's not important. What is important right now is typing up a report and figuring out where the hell that stupid fucker of a villain went. That's his plan, at least. But he's stopped short by the figure that's standing behind his desk and staring out those crystalline floor-to-ceiling windows, biting their nails and hunched over themselves. They jump at the sound of the door swinging shut. When they turn, green eyes light up first with shock, before melting into sweet relief tinged with pink affection. Katsuki! Thank God! So Katsuki is hallucinating right now. And it's a very vivid one too, because there's no way a Deku is really in front of him, standing as if he belongs in his office, calling him his God-given name and holding such blatant affection in his eyes. But there is he. He doesn't disappear, rather rushes forward and engulfs Katsuki in a hug before his mind can process the movement. His eyes widen. The embrace is warm. It's warmer still when Deku relaxes against him, slotting them together as puzzle pieces. Katsuki's immediate reaction is to hug back. He's powerless not to in the face of the heated feelings spreading through his chest, but his hands pause right above Deku's lower back and hover. This doesn't happen. Deku has never come to his office and they haven't hugged since they were in grade school. Something must be off for this to be happening right now, and the thought sits odd in his chest. So he drops his hands, eschews returning the hug for asking, in voice as harsh as he can manage when he's being held so softly, "What the F are you doing here?" Deku takes a step back, hurt flashing through his shining eyes. "Do you not want me here?" he asks slowly. Katsuki can't help the sneer that breaks across his face. It isn't out of disdain or anger at Deku being in his office, but rather out of frustration for such a stupid question. Deku is the smartest person he knows. He already knows Katsuki well enough to discern why the situation is odd. "UFING hit your head or something? When was the last time you came to my office and hugged me?" At that Deku's face changes, like he'd eaten something sour. He frowns but doesn't avert his eyes. "I didn't realize you were still mad at me," he spits with more bitterness than Katsuki thought Deku could ever feel, much less express. Wait a minute. So first Deku is in his office, then he's hugging him, and now Katsuki is mad at him? And has been this whole time, apparently? UFING joking? We haven't had a fight in weeks, why the hell would I be mad? Are you drunk right now? Deku doesn't respond to Katsuki's little interrogation. Instead, something on Katsuki's person catches his eye. He tenses a bit then directly glares at Katsuki. It's not with anger, but rather annoyance, and perhaps no small amount of worry if Katsuki was to admit it. "Seriously?" he asks with that same bitterness from a moment ago. "I don't know what the F is going on with you," Katsuki deadpans. Deku twitches, annoyance morphing into something closer to an anger that was lacking from before. He's too ensconced in his own confusion to stop Deku as he moves closer, grabbing his left hand to shove it in Katsuki's face accusingly. Katsuki gets a good look at his own palm, calloused and destructive as always. Deku doesn't seem to be focused on that, though. He stares right past it, pinning Katsuki with an oddly expectant look. "What the F are you doing?" Katsuki shouts, pulling his captive arm away. He rubs at his wrist as it feels weird and tingly where Deku had circled his fingers around bare skin. "Don't touch my arm. It's weird." "You're not wearing your ring," Deku says by way of explanation. Katsuki stops. Deku sounds as if those words in that order should make perfect sense, or are at least a solid justification for basically pushing Katsuki's hand up his own nose. "My ring?" He bites out incredulously. "What a finger ring?" Even though Katsuki has never once worn a ring in his life, especially not long enough for it to be a routine thing, Deku appears to be growing frustrated at Katsuki's total obliviousness. "You haven't taken the thing off in 5 years and now suddenly you changed your mind? Why?" This is about the rogue villain I faced alone last weekend, right? Because I told you already I had no choice. And it's not like you're one to talk with how you were just found passed out in the street like a lunatic. Which we still haven't addressed, by the way. So I understand the concern, but I don't appreciate the hypocrisy and honestly we should. Katsuki stomps forward from where Deku has now began pacing in front of him, gesticulating wildly as he rants, and grabs him roughly by the shoulders. This gets him to shut up, and Deku's head snaps up, locking his own agitated gaze with Katsuki's furious one. "Stop and explain," Katsuki tries to say calmly, but through his agitation it comes out as more of a harsh bite. "What the actual fresh hell you're talking about? Start with the ring and finish with everything else." Katsuki expects that to take the wind from Deku's sails, calm him down a bit, and technically it does, just not in the way Katsuki was expecting. Instead of calming down and explaining what the F he's saying, Deku quiets and legitimate concern replaces the volatile agitation that was dancing in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Katsuki feels his eye twitch. "What do you mean, what do I mean?" Deku's frowning now, even though he doesn't step away from Katsuki's grasp. Actually, Katsuki realizes he can probably let go now. It might have been a little awkward to keep his hands there that long. Luckily, Deku doesn't notice, or if he does, he doesn't show any indication of it before he's launching into a litany of nonsensical questions. "Is something wrong with your memory? Did you hit your head really bad? Is that why you were on the street?" Asking more questions doesn't clarify shit, dumb F dash. He hisses through clenched teeth. Katsuki has a FING headache. Maybe they really do need to work on their shitty communication skills. "And what if in a ring?" Deku crosses his arms. That concern is still adorning his features, and yet he manages to be said with Katsuki anyway. Same old Deku then, aggressively caring in a way that leaves him always raring for a fight when he's pushed away. "I really think we should take you to medical wing. Something is clearly wrong and—" "No!" Katsuki snaps. He pulls his hand through his hair in frustration and tries to quell the burning anger that's rising in him. "You're not taking me to the FNG doctor when you're the one who came to my office and started acting weird as all F dash." Deku genuinely thinks on this. After a moment, he apparently decides to humor him. Or maybe he's just planning on grabbing Katsuki by the hair and dragging him to the doctor the second he lets his guard down. Okay, he agrees slowly enough that Katsuki knows he's about to say something stupid. "If I'm the one acting weird, why aren't you wearing your ring?" Katsuki has to physically hold himself back from punching a wall. They're going in circles and Deku still isn't making any sense. "What FNG ring? I don't own any goddamn rings." Deku gives a heavy, put-upon sigh, shoots him an infuriating "I told you" look. He clearly wants to be in the medical wing right now, under the impression that Katsuki's confusion is proving his point. Katsuki supposes he should consider himself lucky that even in his clearly delusional state, Deku can't stop himself from helping Katsuki. Not that what he says next is very helpful. "Your wedding ring, Katsuki. The one you spent weeks agonizing over because of your obsession with every little thing being perfect at the wedding." Katsuki's breath leaves his lungs. "A wedding ring? Deku is here, losing his shit over a wedding ring? Is this some kind of sick joke?" Thoughts whirl around his head but none of them stick. A wedding ring? And it's a wedding ring that doesn't even exist, because Katsuki's not married, last time he checked. In fact, he's not even dating anyone at the moment. But in spite of that, here Deku is, standing in front of him and seeming very sure Katsuki has been married for, what was it? 5 years? That would mean I got hitched right out of you. Katsuki fumes silently, trying to piece together what sort of F-ed hallucination Deku is going through right now. Also, why would Deku even care about this hypothetical ring? That sounds like Katsuki's business and his alone. This isn't to say that he's getting defensive over a ring that he doesn't even own. That would be crazy, and it looks like Katsuki is the only sane one in the room. "I'm not dash." Katsuki tries, but he's so caught in his own convoluted thoughts, and the implications of Deku being so concerned about his hypothetical wedding ring, that it comes out quieter than he'd intended it to. Deku's steam rolls over him, either not hearing or not caring, pressing on in his speech as he always does. "I don't know what type of twisted silent treatment you're giving me right now, but pretending to not have your ring is a new low, even for you. I already told you I was sorry about last weekend, and I haven't taken mine off." Deku holds his own left hand up, showing off a pristine silver ring with crystal diamonds lining the band and a gorgeous ruby in the center. The light reflects off it so well it almost looks like stained glass. The thing must have been incredibly expensive, and Katsuki has a sinking feeling Deku expects him to have a matching one. Next time you're mad at me, talk to me. I don't know why we've been having such communication issues recently, but it's nothing we can't fix. Katsuki is rooted in place. His brain is moving too slow to keep up with the absolute bullets of information being shot at him. Married? He's not married. He's married? He's not married. But then, how hard do you have to throw a rock at someone's head for them to hallucinate being married to their closest friend/rival for the past 5 years? Katsuki thinks Deku found out this morning. His initial reaction is to get angry, shout and defend himself as the situation demands he should, but he can't seem to muster up the necessary rage. He's too busy feeling too many other things at once: confusion, frustration, shock, and a tight feeling in his chest that reminds him of watching a sad movie and holding back tears. Then he makes the mistake of meeting Deku's eyes again. For a moment the fact that Deku is experiencing a massive FING slide right now, which must be leading to him believing this twisted delusion, slips from Katsuki's mind. The way Deku's eyes are softening and the sweet, adoring smile that's made its way to his lips warns Katsuki of what's coming next. It's the obvious conclusion and he's completely caught, hanging on to Deku's next words like a thorny lifeline. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Katsuki, you know I love you. I want to be with you and a stupid argument isn't going to change that. The world slows down. Katsuki needs a second. Katsuki, I love you. Delusion or not, Katsuki needs a second. F him for having stupid FANG emotions and being a weak FANG beach. He just needs a second. But Deku isn't giving him a second. Instead he's stepping forward and looping his arms around Katsuki's neck. Katsuki is powerless to do anything but stare into his forgiving eyes, completely astonished. I love you, Deku murmurs, apparently having decided their little tiff is concluded. Nothing is going to change that. And at that he leans in and connects their lips. Katsuki doesn't mean to let his eyes close. They do so of their own volition and he's too distracted by Deku kissing him to stop it. The warm lips on his, the distinctly scarred hands that brush along the nape of his neck, the musculature that feels addictingly solid under his hands as he grips Deku's hips with embarrassing desperation. When did that happen? All leave him too unmoored to fight for once. Saying it's unexpected would be an understatement. Katsuki has never let himself dream that Deku might reciprocate, not after everything their relationship had and hadn't become over the years, and so this wasn't ever on the table for him. The wandering hands and soft noises Deku is making against his lips say otherwise, though. It takes him a long moment to consider pulling away, to force his fuzzy brain to think past kissing back and never letting go of the iron-tight grip he's got on Deku's waist. Then Deku moves back and Katsuki is more flustered than he'll ever admit, the room spinning as if he'd been punched. Realization sets in, and it's like getting knocked upside the head with an 8-wheeler. He just kissed Deku. Deku just kissed him. What the F dash? He tries for intimidating, but the bright red flush up to his ears exposes how flustered he truly is. This is apparently the wrong thing to say. Deku makes a frustrated sound and pushes Katsuki back. Both palms open against his chest. Usually this would end in a fight, or Deku pushed back harder, but Katsuki lets it slide this time because he's still piecing his FANG thoughts back together. Really? Even now? Deku shouts. You're being such a D-dash. Katsuki shoves an accusatory finger in his face. You kissed me. Of course I did. You're my husband. God FING damn it. In a way, having it said directly to his face, out loud and irreversible, makes it real. It's really real. Deku is really standing in front of him, tangible as ever, set off because Katsuki is denying having married him 5 years ago. This has to be a fever dream. And maybe it isn't Deku at all, maybe Katsuki was poisoned at the cafe he grabbed breakfast from this morning. This could all be in his head, like a bad acid trip. Apropos of that thought, Katsuki suddenly recalls the travesty that was this morning. Now that he's thinking about it, the day did start weird with that sheet stain of a villain. It's entirely possible he did something to Katsuki. Maybe he even got to Deku, maybe that's where he ran off to. Whatever it is, whatever magic trick that deranged fucker pulled, it has somehow landed Katsuki in the most agonizing position of his life. There's no other explanation, and Katsuki refuses to accept he's legitimately going crazy, so it has to be that. Approaching it, though, is going to be an issue. This isn't real, Katsuki says. He realizes it may sound crazy, but he's never been concerned with Deku's opinion of him, and he's not going to start now, especially not with this warped version of him claiming to love Katsuki. Really, if anyone is crazy here, it's not him. Deku gives him a funny look. Agitated worry spins across his features. He looks halfway between punching Katsuki and dragging him to the medical wing by force. Alright, that's it. I'm taking you to the infirmary because something is really, really wrong. Fed up, Katsuki shouts, "That's not what I meant, does. Let me finish for F's sake." That shuts Deku up, but the hurt that shines in his eyes from the harsh words almost makes Katsuki regret saying them. Almost. I was fighting a villain earlier and Katsuki trails off and clenches his fists, realizing that to explain his hunch he'll have to admit his defeat. When the silence drags on for a moment, Deku steps a bit closer and places a comforting hand on his shoulder, always reaching out for him even at their worst moments. It's warm and it is comforting. Katsuki feels a pull for more contact, always more, but he ignores it pointedly. Now isn't the time, especially not with the memory of their kiss still seared in neon lights on his brain. Katsuki steps back and shrugs off Deku's hand, clears his throat and continues. Deku lets him. He got the jump on me and knocked me out. When I woke up he was gone. Just me and the shitty civilians that saw the thing go down. Understanding lights in Deku's eyes. They widen a bit and he parts his lips. That's why you were randomly laying in the street? Katsuki nods. If that's what it seemed like from Deku's perspective, some foul play must have been involved. If the villain is capable of erasing people's memories of him, causing the civilians at the scene to not forget their fight and claim that Katsuki had simply fainted, it's possible he could have messed with Deku as well, making him believe that Katsuki is his husband. Maybe Katsuki isn't the one who's even afflicted here. But what would the sick F gain from that? And how could he have gotten from their fight to Deku so fast Katsuki knows he wasn't out that long? Too many things just don't add up. Of course, there's always the possibility he's been transported to another reality. It's a stretch by far, but it would explain Deku's new ring and shiny new husband status. No one had answers about the villain even though they saw us fight before I went down. Deku waits for him to continue. That alone is weird, but last time I checked we were barely friends again, and now you're coming in here telling me I'm your husband. Katsuki doesn't mean to spit it like it's a dirty word. That was unintentional, an unexpected result of the convoluted emotions ripping through his brain. God, Deku kissed him. You think the villain erased our marriage from your memory? Crestfallen is a strong word, but Deku is getting there with his teary voice and glassy eyes. Katsuki shakes his head and paces a bit, anger bubbling up from where he had thought he had calmed it. A marriage. A marriage. Katsuki steamrolls past that little detail. No, I'm saying that we were ever married at all. You're hallucinating, or I'm hallucinating, or this is FING parallel universe. The stupid idiot villain pulled some magic sheet while I was out, and now I'm here. You know that sounds a little crazy, right? Deku asks gently, as if he's afraid Katsuki will break. Coddling him like Katsuki always asked him not to. Katsuki grits his teeth, ignores the way they tingle from the phantom feeling of Deku's kiss. Of course I know it sounds FNG bats hit. If I was lying you don't think I'd come up with a more believable story? Deku purses his lips, crosses his arms. So you're not my Katsuki? My Katsuki. It rings loudly through his head and Katsuki answers with more force than necessary to be heard over the sound. No. Not even FNG close. Deku contemplates this for a moment, undoubtedly categorizing all this new information into neat, understandable boxes in his head. The sun glints through the window glass to remind them of its midday presence. Another moment passes. Then finally, I believe you, Deku relents. Katsuki snorts in disbelief. That was effing easy. It explains why you're not wearing your ring, Deku points out. And why you have no memory of our marriage. No fing duh. 'Cause we ain't married. And about that, I guess I owe you an apology. Deku sounds sheepish, almost embarrassed by the necessary words that force themselves out of his mouth. He averts his eyes, turns a refreshing pink and scratches the back of his neck awkwardly. Their kiss flashes through his mind again. The feeling of it, Deku's hips under his hands. Katsuki, you know I love you. Nothing is going to change that. Yeah. You owe me one big time, Katsuki says through gritted teeth. Deku gives a wry smile and shifts from foot to foot. It's almost amusing how he's gone from blazing anger to awkward embarrassment in such a short time. This day has been a train wreck in general, though, so it's not a shocking development. Alright, I guess we should talk to someone who can't help us. I'm not sure on the procedure for whatever this is, but I'm sure we can figure something out. Deku breathes in a rush, covering up the awkward pause that hung in the air. Speaking of, what is this? Are you from an alternate reality, or are you my Katsuki but with altered memories? My Katsuki. If I knew I'd tell you, Katsuki bites out, ignores the annoyance over the fact he just said he doesn't know what's going on. Deku doesn't seem pleased with this answer, never content with the unknown, but has apparently decided that pressing for more will get him nowhere. Okay, he acquiesces, I understand. But would you be up for going to talk with someone who might be able to help us? That depends, Katsuki says, crossing his arms. Who? Deku walks to the door and pulls it open before turning back around to address Katsuki. I think All Might could have information. Maybe he's even had experience with something similar in the past. Katsuki feels the world drop out from under his feet. He can't do anything about the thick sheet of icy horror that crawls over his veins. Deku is none the wiser to his shock, just strolls out of the office with the expectation of Katsuki's following. God fing damn it. Toshinori died on a Sunday. It was a quiet denouement. He passed in his sleep of natural causes, a heart attack due to old age that couldn't have been predicted. It was a devastatingly human end to the closest thing their society had to a god, and a devastatingly sudden end to the closest thing Deku had to a father. To add insult to injury, Deku had been the one to find him. He showed up for their weekly lunch with eyes shining bright as ever and left grieving, inconsolable even as he sobbed into Katsuki's arms. The scars left from him accidentally activating his quirk and digging his fingernails into Katsuki's back are still there. It was a peaceful end, but death hurts no matter what form it comes in. Katsuki still had so many things to say to the man, so many victories he had wanted to win for him. But the world owed him nothing and it gave him as much. Toshinori died and his funeral was lovely. Deku and Katsuki miss him in their every action, and it hasn't stopped hurting even after 3 years. That hurt is flaring up now as Izuku knocks on Toshinori's apartment door with a piece that is incongruous with the grief etched into every inch of this apartment. The Deku of his own reality, as he's currently working on the assumption that this is some parallel universe type sheet, wouldn't be able to walk down this street without a waterfall of tears, much less show up all cheery at the door. It's jarring to say the least. When Toshinori opens the door, greets them both with a smile, it feels like resolution. Katsuki's heart is beating so fast it's basically still and his chest is so heavy it's difficult to breathe. Ah, the Midoriya Bakugo household. Wonderful to see you both. May I ask the occasion? 3 words in and this quasi-all might is already referencing their marriage. Katsuki would dwell on it but it's overshadowed by the fact that he's tangibly alive enough to do such a thing. He hasn't changed a bit, still looks exactly how Katsuki remembers seeing him 3 days before his death. His skeleton form is constant now, but the eye bags that had been so pronounced during Katsuki's UA years are cleared up. Retirement treats treated him well, adding meat to his bones and a light in his eyes that comes from knowing his legacy is secure. Katsuki wants to punch something. He isn't sure how to feel, to react. Business, actually. Izuku replies lightly. The respectful admiration on his face is a carbon copy of how his own Deku had looked at their mentor. Katsuki clenches his fist and counts backwards from 10 in his head. I see. Toshinori turns to Katsuki, ready with cordiality. only to falter when he notices the tension woven through his stance. "Are you all right there, young Katsuki? You seem a bit stressed today." About that, Izuku scratches the back of his neck awkwardly, searching for the words to describe this F-ed situation. He's not actually our Katsuki. Toshinori steps back, surprise painted over his features. The hallway blows a cold draft into his cozy apartment. "He's not what? Can we come in?" Izuku asks, anxious. This snaps Toshinori out of his daze. "Yes, of course. My apologies." Toshinori ushers them in. He places a hand on Izuku's shoulder, but Katsuki ducks away from the touch. It feels too much like a ghost reaching from the grave. "Breathe," he reminds himself. "Stay calm and focus on fixing this." Katsuki follows Izuku into Toshinori's apartment and shuts the door behind him. Trying to explain how they got into this position proves to be a clusterfuck. He and Izuku keep talking over each other, correcting each other, and getting lost in diverging storylines. Katsuki tries to delve more into the parallel universe theory he's been fiddling with in his head, but Izuku is leaning towards psychosis still. Katsuki smacks him over the head when he comments that maybe Katsuki just hit his head really hard, and it devolves into an argument from there. Eventually, they're able to share what they know. Katsuki was fighting a villain, got knocked out somehow, and woke up to find himself in a different world. Whether or not that different world is real or exists solely in his head is still up in the air. Toshinori is quiet as they bicker. He observes them with seeing eyes and silent thoughts. He waits until Katsuki and Izuku are finished, settled after retelling their anecdote, to speak. "So you aren't sure if this is an alternate world or if you're simply suffering a lapse in memory?" Katsuki grunts in affirmation. The possibility of him being a Katsuki from an alternate world is breathtaking. It would imply the existence of a multiverse and be a groundbreaking discovery for the scientific community, especially because his presence here would require contact between the worlds, most likely caused by some type of advanced portal quirk. It's almost frightening to think of a quirk that powerful and its implications, but I think with more data we could definitely even hear you FNG ramble about nothing, Katsuki grumbles under his breath. Izuku is talking about the possibility of him being from a different world, but Katsuki has already accepted it as fact. He continues louder so as to talk over Izuku's tirade, "And it's not a possibility, dipshit. I already told you I'm not from here. We ain't married and I don't have a concussion. The villain must have dropped me here then F-ed off." Izuku gives an annoyed sigh and throws himself back into the couch they're seated on, crossing his arms stubbornly. "Sure, alternate Katsuki. And you never let me ramble anyway, so I don't know why you're upset about it," he huffs out. Apparently Katsuki hit a nerve. "Don't call me that, and the fact that I don't have a ring should be evidence enough I'm not your husband," Katsuki asserts, directing the last two words towards Izuku. He sticks out his tongue petulantly and Katsuki rolls his eyes. "It could have fallen off." Izuku retorts. Katsuki arches a brow. "That sound likely genius? Or you just don't want to admit you were wrong?" Toshinori chuckles at their bickering, but it's a muted sound. He's less energetic than usual, less energetic than Katsuki remembers him being, and seems distracted by his own thoughts. Finally, he asks, "You don't suppose this might be correlated with the recent terrorist attacks on the DHA, do you, young Izuku?" Izuku perks up. "Ah crap. I didn't even think about it like that." "What attacks?" Katsuki demands. "And what's the DHA?" Izuku gives him a confused look. "You've forgotten about the Department of Heroic Affairs too? That doesn't exist in my world, dumbass," Katsuki shoots back. He feels the same headache that's been present all day building back up again, and the way Izuku's ring glints in the afternoon sun isn't helping. He wishes the man would take it off already. This certainly does give credence to the alternate world theory. I can see the advantage of making Katsuki forget his identity, but there is no obvious benefit of wiping an entire government agency from his mind as well. "Hey," Katsuki pipes up. "My memories haven't been erased. I remember the past 5 years crystal effing clear. That doesn't rule out foul play though in terms of your mental state. Leaving the number one hero incapacitated is a definite advantage for the villains, So twisting your mind with fake memories would be a useful tactic. But I could say the same about transporting an alternate you into this situation. Either way, the villains have a victory here. Katsuki stops listening halfway through Toshinori's little contemplation. He takes a deep breath and wills the world to stop spinning so suddenly. Number one hero? The hoarseness in his voice is too embarrassing for him to think about. This day is one kick in the stomach after another. Even more so when Izuku gives him a soft smile, the first gleam of affection since Izuku realized this Katsuki isn't his husband. Are you not the number one hero yet in your own reality? He asks, a strange pride in his voice. Katsuki is so distracted by it that he doesn't even realize Izuku had basically just admitted that Katsuki's alternate world theory is the more likely one. It's astounding to Katsuki that even now, with the ocean of existence between him and his husband, Izuku still finds a way to brag about his Katsuki. Toshinori's small smile echoes a similar sentiment. Even though he's sitting in the same room as the men, directly next to Izuku and directly across from Toshinori, he feels like he's watching the scene through a glass box. Its sudden underwater, cotton in his ears consistency is disorienting. They must love the other him a lot. No, Katsuki admits to Izuku. You are. Izuku doesn't look as surprised as Katsuki expected, but his eyes do soften and he unconsciously turns his body towards Katsuki a bit more. We fight for the position usually. You just happened to take the lead last week. The shine in Izuku's green eyes is difficult to look away from. Katsuki does it anyway with a silent nod of acknowledgement, not trusting his voice at the moment. And I assume I'm still in retirement in your world, right, young Katsuki? Toshinori breaks in. If he notices the pain that ensconces itself neatly into the lines of Katsuki's face at his words, he doesn't comment. Yeah, he croaks out. Something like that. Stupidly, he averts his eyes from Toshinori without thinking and ends up looking right into Izuku's. They're still in unbearably soft, as if Izuku forgot that this Katsuki isn't his husband. The thought sends a sharp stab of something to Katsuki's gut, but they light in recognition at the pain that laces through the red of Katsuki's iris. Izuku, always one for small mercies, clears his throat and changes the subject. Anyways, the DHA is a governmental body that regulates heroic agencies and their employees. Heroes have to file reports to them, pay a yearly stipend for damages, and generally defer to their calls. Katsuki schools his face back to its regular irritated contentment from where his momentary grief had twisted it in knots. Sounds shitty. Someone seems to think so, Toshinori agrees, as numerous buildings under jurisdiction of the department have been bombed recently. Threats have also been reported in high volume towards DHA agents, leading to a staggering number of resignations. A villain? Or a group of them? Toshinori gives a wry smile. We don't know, Izuku admits. There's never any evidence left at the bombing sites and the people who have been suddenly resigning refuse to say why. Whoever is doing this has been careful about covering their tracks. So you got no leads at all? Katsuki asks, not intending it to come out as sharp as it does. Izuku shifts uncomfortably and Toshinori's gaze flickers to him, then back to Katsuki with disapproval. We are doing our best, young Katsuki. Heroes from all over Japan are on high alert and security has been increased in all DHA buildings. Current members of the agency have around-the-clock protection. Katsuki feels a sense of guilt over how quickly he's disappointed this Toshinori. He was never the favorite, never able to hold his tongue when the time called for it, and always ended up accidentally effing up whenever he had thought he'd made good progress in the man's eyes. How nice to see that no matter what world he's in, some things don't change. And how am I connected to that sheet? Katsuki tries to phrase it as an amendment, an opportunity to move on from the previous line of conversation. It's his own form of an apology for speaking too callously. He's not sure how well it works, but at the very least it allows the conversation to continue. As the number one hero, taking you out would be a definite advantage. The instability zone into society right now has been steadily increasing, as the DHA has been so distracted by their consecutive losses they have become lax in regulating heroic agencies. A sort of power vacuum has formed from that, with each hero is scrambling to one-up another and get a foothold in the weakened agency. They all want more control of their heroic endeavors. It's almost reminiscent of the last years of Rome before it was overwhelmed by the Visigoths, Tashinori expounds. The chill that runs down Katsuki's spine feels like ice being poured down his back. So what? He asks gruffly. Someone's trying to dismantle your hero system by taking out the DHA? And they want to do that through me? It's more like you're one moving cog in a steam engine, Izuku hums with contemplation. My Katsuki had been meeting with DHA agents and was very vocal about how he would take down whoever is doing these things. He found it very easy to make enemies. He's definitely a threat they would want gone, but he's not their endgame. If Izuku says my Katsuki one more time, Katsuki is gonna bite his head off. Alright, then let's find the fuckers doing the sheet and take 'em out, Katsuki says as if it's the most obvious solution on the planet. Izuku rolls his eyes. It's not that simple, and like Tashinori said, we've been doing our best to work with what little evidence we've got. Tashinori nods his unspoken agreement. A sharp grin breaks across Katsuki's lips, completely out of his control. Yeah, well, now I'm here and we're gonna do my best, he asserts. Not like he hasn't always loved a challenge. Izuku's lips twitch up with that old admiration he's always harbored just for Katsuki. He's never been able to look away from the fire that burns in him and that hasn't changed now, regardless of which version of Katsuki is sitting next to him. Katsuki is the brightest star Izuku has ever seen. He wants to douse him in gasoline just to keep him burning. Tashinori gives a light-hearted laugh. If I didn't know any better I'd say you were the same as ever, young Katsuki. Being compared to Izuku's husband himself, being compared to himself probably shouldn't make him as proud as it does. But Katsuki will never admit it, and Tashinori has a way of making every little compliment sound like the highest praise possible. Katsuki hadn't realized how much he missed it. I'll take that as a compliment, old man, Katsuki snarks back with a confident grin. He doesn't even realize how comfortable he's become, how far his guard has dropped until the teasing words are out of his mouth. It's just so easy to get distracted and pretend that nothing's changed, that he and Izuku and Tashinori are simply sitting down for lunch and discussing their careers as usual. Tashinori's responding laugh at his comment only helps the warm pride and contentment that has slithered into his veins. Not sure he meant it as one, Izuku chimes in, relaxed by Katsuki's own burgeoning relaxation. And? Who asked you? Izuku makes an indignant noise and retaliates that Katsuki shouldn't be so rude to his husband. Tashinori finds amusement in their bantering and the conversation flows on. It drifts from getting Katsuki back to his own world to Izuku's recent heroic highlights, and then slips even further to what it's like in Katsuki's world. He dances delicately around Tashinori's poignant absence in his reality and, thankfully, neither of the other men mention Katsuki's world's Deku. Izuku doesn't bring up their marriage again, which allows for the evening to roll on as smooth as silk. When it comes time for them to leave, Katsuki doesn't mind that he had lost the handle on the conversation hours before. And why should he? This the most relaxed he's felt in years. Unfortunately, as he was so distracted by his good mood, it doesn't occur to Katsuki that he has nowhere to go until they've already left Tashinori's house and are driving through the city in Izuku's car. He groans, pulling a hand through his hair. Where the F am I gonna stay? I don't have my wallet in this stupid costume. Izuku flushes. It's pretty on his face, makes his soft features stand out more sharply. I thought, you could just stay with me. And why the F would I do that? Katsuki shoots back, careful to keep his voice emotionless. He looks out the window and ignores the nervous tattoo Izuku's fingers drum against the steering wheel. It's odd to think this could be an entirely different world when everything looks so similar. Katsuki can recognize all the major buildings he sees, and everything seems to be in place. As they drive, he notices a few inconsistencies, such as the lack of that old ugly statue in City Park he's always hated, but other than that he may as well be home. He wishes he was, at least. He can admit that to himself. I mean, all of my Katsuki's stuff is there and you're probably the same size as him, so you can use his clothes and toothbrush and stuff, Deku explains. Katsuki can see how hard he's trying to not ramble as a vent for his anxious energy. Katsuki wrinkles his nose. Luckily, Deku is resolutely focused on the road. Right? You guys live together, 'cause you're married. Izuku smiles. Yes. Still don't know how the F that happened, Katsuki snorts, traitorous eyes drifting to that expensive ring. We love each other. I forgave you him a long time ago, Katsuki. Life is too short to not chase what you want. A dreamy edge softens Izuku's profile, wistful eyes wandering to his imagination. You taught me that. There's a sharp pain in Katsuki's heart he doesn't care to identify. He chalks it up to hearing Izuku use his full name, which is still throwing him off. Yeah, is all he says in response. It hurts more than anything to hear the sincerity in his words and know they aren't for him. Izuku lets the silence linger. When it does finally break, it's because Katsuki can't keep his trap shut. You're real calm about your husband being gone. He wants to wince as soon as it's out of his mouth and he realizes how it sounds, as soon as Izuku's fingers tighten on the steering wheel. An awkward air descends into the car, tightening around Katsuki's throat and catching any words that may have softened the blow. Katsuki shuts his mouth. He's never been reticent before, but now is as good a time as any to start. My Katsuki is? Izuku begins after a moment. He's strong. I have complete faith in him, just like how I'm sure the Izuku of your world has faith in you. Wherever he is, I'm sure he's safe. Izuku's jaw clenches. I'm sure of it. Katsuki has to fight to urge to put a hand on his shoulder. He's just so much like Katsuki's, like the Deku from Katsuki's world, yet there is a distinct dichotomy between their actions. It's like someone took Deku's platonic admiration for him and bent it until it took the shape of utter love and devotion. Katsuki shouldn't want it so bad. But it's so easy to fall into the notes of the flute and ignore the warnings in the song. If he feeds into this, into the feelings for Deku he's kept hidden so well for so long, it'll do nothing except cause him pain when he gets back. It will hurt his and Deku's relationship, and this Izuku, an Izuku who loves him unconditionally, will be stuck in his mind for the rest of his life. It won't end well, there's no way it could. But Katsuki reaches out and lays a hand on the inside of Izuku's elbow. He feels the tension drain out of him, watches his fingers relax around the wheel, his ring catching the light for a moment before escaping back into the shade, and makes a decision. Of course he's fine, Katsuki says. He's never lost before and he's sure as shit ain't starting now. Watery gratitude fills Izuku's eyes, which shine brighter than his ring. You don't know that, he retorts, but there's an affection laden in the words that Katsuki can't help but latch onto. Yeah, I do. He's me, right? And I'm competent as F-. No way any weird shit is gonna happen to him, so don't worry about it so dim and much. Katsuki isn't really sure what he's saying, too caught up in calming Izuku down to focus on the meaning of the syllables that spin into words on his tongue. The stoplight in front of them turns yellow, pauses for a moment of indecision, before a blaring red takes center stage. Izuku hits the brakes gently and they slow to a stop. When he looks at Katsuki his eyes are red-rimmed but there's no tear marks on his cheeks. It's only the possibility of tears, but it's as visceral as if he was sobbing. You're right, he agrees softly, gaze flickering down to where Katsuki's hand still lays on his elbow. Thank you. Katsuki, for some ungodly reason, flushes. He nods in response and then snaps his head away, looking back out the window. The hand that laid on Izuku's arm is promptly removed, but no matter what Katsuki tells himself, it doesn't erase the fact it was there. At least the heavy feeling in his chest has dissipated, fleeing quickly to make way for the warm heat that's trickling through Katsuki's chest. He supposes that's better than nothing. The traffic light flickers to a permissive green and Izuku eases onto the gas. He goes straight for a few streets and then turns left, then makes a right. Katsuki assumes he's taking them to his apartment and makes no move to stop him. Staring intently out the window, Katsuki watches the setting sun cede control of the sky to the purple night that drapes itself over the horizon. If nothing else, at least it truly is a beautiful evening. Katsuki dreams of failure and death. He dreams of swinging and missing, of begging for forgiveness with a trapped voice. He dreams of going up against nature and failing. He dreams of grief over the inevitable and mercy gone quiet. When Izuku shakes him awake, shouting logic into his sleep-addled brain and scaring him into sitting up right in the sweaty sheets. He feels the tear stains on his cheeks before he realizes he was crying. The room is oppressively quiet, Katsuki's ragged breaths being the only thing that break the heavy silence. Izuku gently asks, "Bad dream?" while he rubs a soothing hand down Katsuki's back. The horrible sounds coming from Katsuki's throat, almost breathing, but not quite, are answer enough. Izuku leaves the room, gentle footsteps padding against the carpet, and comes back shortly with a glass of water. Katsuki takes it without a word. He doesn't want to think about the fact that he must have been dreaming loud enough to be heard in Izuku's down-the-hall bedroom. Katsuki had taken the couch, which was unnecessarily luxurious and plush, while Izuku had settled into his own bed. Katsuki borrowed the other Katsuki's pajamas and Izuku found a spare toothbrush under the sink. Few words were exchanged when they got to Izuku's apartment. They ate a quiet dinner in the modern dining room, Katsuki secretly admiring the picturesque view of the evening city provided by the penthouse window. Afterwards, they silently cleaned up the minimal dishes used. Izuku announced he was going to get ready for bed. It had obviously been a long day, and offered to show Katsuki around. Katsuki had agreed and their night routine began. He had found it easy to fall asleep. Maybe that was his mistake, thinking he deserved sleep at all. Especially here, of all places. Wherever this is. Can I ask what it was about? Izuku's words snap him to the heavy present. Katsuki grunts. The moon winks at him and the city skyline inhales deeply, in perfect tandem with its sleeping inhabitants. It exhales as flickering traffic lights and alarms ticking down. Izuku's gentle voice shakes the deadened room. Just some shit I'm working through. Hero trauma. I'm sure you get it. Izuku falls quiet for a moment. Was it about Toshinori? Katsuki's head snaps up. He doesn't reply, but his eyes are alert now, on edge and hiding vulnerability in anger. Izuku rushes to explain himself. You seemed off when we talked with him, and when he made that comment about retirement, you looked so sad. I figured something had happened to him in your world that didn't happen here. Izuku noticed all that about him? Is Katsuki just easy to read or does this man just know him that well? To be honest, Katsuki doesn't want to know. Katsuki stays silent. His labored breaths have slowed, but are still rougher than usual. If you want to talk about it, Izuku whispers. I'm here to listen. The thought passes through his mind. How would this Izuku react if Katsuki told him he's still crying like a beach over something as stupid as natural causes? There is no reason for him to feel this way, for viscous guilt and grief to still be stuck to him like glue. He's mourned, he's moved on, and yet here he is, fresh from a nightmare and irrationally brought to tears by grief. And that's really all it is, grief. There's nothing to explain, no solution to this feeling. Katsuki is simply grieving. He and Deku have been since their lifetime idol died, and it's entirely possible they will never stop. It gets better, but it never goes away. It stays and hurts, it just hurts and hurts and hurts and... Strong arms wrap around Katsuki's shaking shoulders. They wrap around him then pull, suggest movement, and Katsuki finds himself tugged into Izuku's warm embrace. He can't move. His heart probably keeps beating, his lungs probably keep drawing air, but everything else feels frozen, encased in the shock of the moment. I don't know what happened, but I know that look. You're grieving. And that's okay. Katsuki's hands fist into the back of Izuku's shirt, holding on for dear life as his throat closes and the first tears fall. He's shell-shocked that he's let himself cry awake and in front of someone else, for the first time in years, but once the dam is broken the river flows, and suddenly he's sobbing openly. Gasping for breath does nothing, Katsuki is winded. And Izuku just keeps talking. I know you like to take the blame for everything, but the world doesn't exist to be carried on your shoulders, Katsuki. Let yourself hurt. You're safe here with me. The other Bihi that comes home to this every day, to an Izuku who loves him unconditionally, who has seen him at his worst and loves him nonetheless. Katsuki himself for being too much of a pathetic coward to pursue this in his own world. Everything. He died, is all Katsuki can make himself whisper out. It's not a lot, A simple confirmation of what Izuku already presumed, yet it's more than he expected to give. He's so used to burying everything so deep it can't be reached by anyone, even himself. But the dream was so cold and Izuku's arms are so warm. Vulnerability is a foreign concept to Katsuki, the word doesn't exist in his vocabulary, but if Izuku keeps holding him like this then Katsuki thinks he wouldn't be opposed to learning. Izuku whispers, "I'm sorry for your loss," and Katsuki breaks a bit less. He isn't sure quite how long they sit there, Katsuki breathing heavily to himself and Izuku holding him through it. Eventually the tears dry up. Katsuki pulls back, taps Izuku's shoulder so the other man lets him go, and then heads to take a shower so he can compose himself. It's one of the longest showers he's even taken. He isn't sure how to deal with a breakdown like this, as he's never let himself experience it before. When he finally shuts off the scalding water, towels off and dresses in sweats and a tank, he shuffles out of the bedroom and finds Izuku in the kitchen, cooking the most delicious-smelling breakfast Katsuki has ever seen. The sun is flirting with the horizon, rising steadily in the sky. "What time is it?" "I made breakfast." It's a peaceful atmosphere. Katsuki has decided to address the haggard state he woke up in by not addressing it at all, and Izuku is apparently respecting his choice. It's a veritable miracle too, because the Deku of his world wouldn't ever leave Katsuki alone if he let himself feel so genuinely in front of him. He'd want to comfort Katsuki, be there for him, and he'd struggle with giving Katsuki the space he needs. Well-intentioned idiocy is the worst kind. But this Izuku is simply humming a bit to himself as he slips a pancake off the pan and onto the steadily growing pile next to him. It's a lot of pancakes for just the two of them, and a generous plate of bacon to top it all off. However, the way Katsuki's stomach is growling means the amount of food won't be an issue. "Feel free to sit," Izuku says with a nod towards the little table by the window where they shared dinner last night. "The food will be ready in a moment." Katsuki takes a seat and looks out the window. Izuku comes over shortly, sets the food on the table and they begin to eat. The pancakes are delicious, fluffy and with tangy blueberries to cut any vague sweetness in the batter. Deku has never been a good cook, dangerous around a knife, but this Izuku has prepared something that rivals even what Katsuki could make. They don't talk as they eat. Instead they enjoy the food and let the silence twist over itself. Sure enough, the amount of food isn't an issue as they cut through 3/4 of it wordlessly. Then Izuku gets a call. A strident alarm pierces the silence and Izuku jumps, alerted by the tone and immediately rushing out of the room. Katsuki hears him pound down the hallway and grab what must be his work phone, answering with an urgent, "What happened?" Katsuki can't make out the words from the other end, and Izuku doesn't say anything else. Information is relayed to him and then Katsuki hears a tight, "Okay, thank you. We'll be right there," before Izuku is storming back in a second later. He's in a rush, throws his dishes into the sink, shoves the juice back into the fridge, and steals Katsuki's food right out from under him. "Hey," Katsuki protests loudly. "I wasn't finished." Another building has been bombed, this one 2 cities away. Realization dawns on Katsuki sharply. He doesn't hesitate, stands immediately, lets his sheet be taken and says, "Let's go." Good thing Katsuki's already showered this morning. As they're leaving, all suited up, as Katsuki borrowed the other Katsuki's hero costume, and just about to head out the door, Izuku suddenly grabs his arm. "Wait." Katsuki turns and raises an eyebrow. His hand drops from where he was about to open the door and his arms cross without him thinking about the movement. "What?" Izuku's face is red. He's blushing like a schoolgirl, which is never a good sign in Katsuki's extensive experience. "Well, you see," Izuku trails off. He raises a hand and scratches anxiously at the back of his neck, which is code for him not wanting to be the bearer of bad news. But of course, his martyr complex won't let him keep Katsuki in the dark about something potentially shitty. The therm of irritation that's building beneath Katsuki's skin matches the beat of his heart. He does his signature sneer and drops his tone, uses his authoritative voice that used to always have Deku spilling his guts. "What?" Finally, in one breath Izuku spits out, "You have to pretend to be my Katsuki." He shouldn't have eaten so many pancakes. Katsuki suddenly thinks he may just vomit them back up. He feels his eye twitch. "And why," he says, counting to 10 in his head, "would I do that?" Izuku frowns, seems genuinely upset over this. He takes a step closer and Katsuki is not focused on their proximity. He's really not. Because the public is already scared. Hearing that the number 1 hero was taken out will terrify them, Izuku explains. Then he tilts his head with thought. "And how would we ever explain this situation anyway, alternate Katsuki?" Admitting Izuku has a point will never happen, so Katsuki just sighs. He has a headache again, but at least that sudden wave of nausea has passed, scared away by the annoying rationale Izuku's offering. FNG fine. What does pretending to be your, Katsuki, husband entail? Izuku smiles weakly. Just little things. My Katsuki calls me, pet names more often than my regular name. If that stops, people will notice. And we, hold hands and kiss goodbye and all that stuff. His voice is uncertain, like he's worried Katsuki will run out the door in less than a second. But Katsuki isn't going anywhere. He's rooted to the spot by misplaced jealousy that he should not be feeling right now, not while listening to Izuku describe how he interacts with husband. They're just so openly in love. It makes Katsuki wonder he's always had a curious mind, and that's a dangerous thing. It takes genuine effort to shove those what ifs back into the dark recesses of Katsuki's mind that they popped up from. The most frustrating part of this new development is that Izuku is following some vague train of logic. Katsuki would be a shitty hero if he let the public devolve into mass hysteria just because he's too PP to hold a hand or give a kiss. It doesn't matter that this is Izuku, that their complicated relationship is still at the forefront of Katsuki's mind, even if things really are different here. It's the principle of the matter, selfishness versus selflessness. Sounds easy as sheet. "Now let's go, there's people waiting for us," Katsuki says confidently. Because fake it till you make it hasn't failed him thus far. Izuku seems bolstered by his agreement. He relaxes, shoulders loosening, eyes shining, smiling wide. "Right." He agrees, and then they're both out the door and on their way to the scene. They get to the building and the police are already there, but no DHA agents from what Katsuki can see. The police aren't doing much, simply milling around the destruction, writing notes on their little pads and generally being useless. Unfortunately, the press is there as well, having been beaten by the police by a scant margin. They're cordoned off to one area in order to minimize the damage they could possibly cause. They froth at the mouth like rabid dogs when they see Deku and Ground Zero approaching the scene. "Ground Zero! Glad to see you're all right. You fell pretty hard the other day." Someone, most likely a snob reporter, shouts from the crowd. Right, Katsuki almost forgot that he was broadcasted as passing out randomly in the street to the entire public. How great for him. Whatever. He'll deal with that later. He barks back, eyes on the prize, I hope. "Aren't you here for the big butt building? Or what's left of the building?" Katsuki supposes. It was originally 12 stories high, but the top 6 are blown out past their bare bones and the bottom 6 are singed beyond recognition. There's no active fires, but there is smoke wafting from the building, perpetuating an awful smell of burnt plastic and vaguely charred wood. He sees no ambulances or stretchers flaunting body bags, which means that, similarly to the other bombing events, no civilians were caught in the explosion. If whoever is doing this isn't looking to kill, then that begs the question of what they are looking for. When he and Izuku approach the captain, who was apparently the person that called them to the scene, he doesn't have many answers. The building was empty, 'cause it's only open 10 to 5 on weekends. Was all quiet, till the people walking by heard a blast and saw the thing go up in smoke. No casualties, but hell of a lot of property damage. Katsuki's lip curls up. "You find any bomb fragments?" "No," the man relays with distaste. "And somehow they managed to get up to the top floor, set the bomb somewhere, and get out before it detonated without a soul seeing them." "Security cameras?" Izuku tries. "Not active during off hours." "Witnesses?" "None at the scene." "FNG hell," Katsuki growls. The press are still clamoring in their corner and a crowd has gathered, held back by the police as they whisper about the building. You mind if we go up there? As a nicety. If Katsuki wants to go examine the exploded building, then that's what he'll do. He's the #1 hero, after all, and his husband is here to back him up. The captain shifts on his feet, clears his throat, and then meets Katsuki's eyes weakly. He's suddenly timid for a ranked member of the police force. I'm gonna be honest with you, sirs, we really only called you down here to say we did. There ain't much you can do, but we wanted the public, he gestures to the civilians observing the scene, to see that the top 2 heroes are on the case. The scoff of disbelief that Katsuki gives can't be helped, and the frown that pulls down Izuku's lips is of the same type. Appearances. They were called here for appearances. These bumbling idiots still have no idea what the F is going on, and they want Katsuki to sit back and let them be stupid. He's about to give the man a few colorful reasons as to why he should be allowed into the building, when Izuku steps between them and holds up a placating hand. Sir, he says, standing tall, back straight. Don't you think it'd be more reassuring to them if they saw us investigate? Even if we won't find anything, Izuku gives a wry smile, allows his words to drip with sarcasm. It'd be good for appearances, right? Katsuki bites his cheek to hold back a smirk, and the captain tilts his head consideringly, one eye wrinkled in distaste, even though he knows there's nothing he can say to prove Izuku wrong. God, Katsuki wants Izuku all for himself. And God, is it not the right time to delve into that FNG mess? The man coughs a bit, nervous. I suppose I don't see why not. Just keep it simple, I already told my men we're clearing out in 10. Simple's my middle name, sir. Katsuki grins in the most sardonic way possible. Izuku snickers under his breath before pulling Katsuki away by the hand. Katsuki tightens his grip and lets himself be led. They stop at the base of the building. It's charred a bit even at the entrance, even though the explosion came from the top of the building. The doors obviously don't work. They'll have to go up the side. Izuku gives him a cocky smile. Race to the top? You gotta stop picking losing battles, babe, Katsuki shoots back, unthinking. Pleasant surprise shows in Izuku's widened eyes, but he takes it in stride, his small smile broadening into a grin. He says jauntily, tough words for someone who's already behind, before crouching low and shooting off, running and swinging up the side of the building like it's nothing. Katsuki wants to be angry, but instead viscous pride and giddy excitement tear through him. He shouts, "You know I hate cheaters, fuckface." After Izuku's springing form, before lowering his stance and blasting from the ground, ascending quickly but not quite reaching Izuku's level. Putting a bit more power into his explosions, Katsuki catches up to where Izuku is still bounding up floor by floor. When he sees Katsuki match his altitude, he gives a huff of exerted amusement and goes up a few OFA percentages until they're both giving it their all to reach the top first. Katsuki can hear the press and the civilians going wild in the background. Good, he thinks in tandem with another illuminate detonation of nitroglycerin. Watch us and see how fast we go. In no time they're both heaving one last burst of power, Katsuki igniting one last explosion and Izuku sparking one last surge of OFA, before they're suspended mid-air above the building and it's simply a matter of who drops first. Izuku's shot of OFA took him closer to the building than Katsuki, who has always had a propensity for shooting too high. He sees the moment Izuku starts to fall, faster and faster, on a path to beat Katsuki. Well, he can't have that. With a burst of power to his left, Katsuki is blown right, exploding through the air and hitting Izuku, sending them both rapidly tumbling and rolling to the top of the building. They hit the ground and bounce. Katsuki pulls Izuku sideways until they finally come to a stop, ensuring that Izuku ends up rolled on top of him. They both stare for a moment, catch their breaths in each other's space. Looks like I won. Izuku just gapes. He doesn't move from where he's pushed himself up onto his elbows and knees. His face is close, very close, and Katsuki tries to ignore the way Izuku's breath is still minty from that annoyingly strong mouthwash he insists on using twice a morning. Izuku leans down, whispers, "Says who? I'm the one laying on the DM in concrete, right? Means I hit the ground first." "Ah," Izuku agrees, his voice teasing in a manner that screams of placation. "Is that all it means?" He lowers himself a bit, just enough to brush his lips against the cut of Katsuki's jaw. Alarm bells ring in Katsuki's mind and he's instantly flustered, to an embarrassing degree, moving to shove Izuku off quickly. Yes, dumbest type of question is that? Katsuki huffs, dusting himself off to the sound of Izuku's cackling. The hilarious to lose, is it? He grumbles to himself. Sorry but didn't mean to press any buttons, Izuku giggles. He still hasn't gotten up, simply laying with his arms crossed and staring up at Katsuki. Katsuki looks at him and feels no fondness for this funhouse mirror version of Deku. He really doesn't. Not in the slightest. But really, the sheet. We're here for a reason, Katsuki reminds them both sharply, but there's no heat in his tone. Let's do our DMN job. Sore winner, Izuku mumbles to himself as he stands up. They set into the building to explore the wreckage. It's charred to unrecognizable, furniture burned to hunks and walls blown out into the street below. The building itself wasn't excessively large, but sizable enough that a decent-sized explosion would be needed to cause that kind of damage. Whatever floor plan this building had was completely destroyed. As they head farther down into the building, all Katsuki can smell is smoke from the put-out fires and burnt office supplies. Why would they do this? What's the point of? Izuku bites his lip with frustration, kicks at the shards of glass that litter the floor, blowing up coffee pots and paperwork. They're on the 8th floor, in what used to be the break room. The TV has fallen off the wall and is sulking on the floor, a delicate spiderweb of cracks playing on the screen. If I know, I just got here, remember? Izuku rolls his eyes. Right, yeah, I know. They didn't even leave a message, you know? If they're not trying to kill people and they're not trying to spread some radical theology, what's the point? Kinda what we're trying to find out, Katsuki says absently as he examines the soot painted over the walls. The entire building is starting to have the scent of something vaguely familiar, and it bothers him, makes him want to scratch at his nose until he can identify it. Let's keep going. Yeah, Izuku agrees and they continue their thus far useless treasure hunt. Katsuki recognizes that familiar smell on the 6th floor, halfway down the building. Wait, he says, extending a hand out to stop Izuku's own exploration of some poor fucker's ex-office. You smell that? Izuku tilts a head in confusion, eyes darting around. No, he says, asks, unsure of what Katsuki is referencing. He drops the ash-laden 2x4 he was examining. It probably dropped from the ceiling, as there's a giant hole just above them. It smells like. Katsuki hedges to a wall, dips a finger into the ash and brings it to his nose. Sure enough, the scent is cloying and deadly recognizable, more familiar to him than his own name. Nitroglycerin. They look through Japan's National Quirk Registry, choosing not to use the international one because it is unlikely that their target is from somewhere outside of Japan, and they want to narrow down their options ASAP. I'll start with all quirks in the same family as yours and your mom's. They could all be a possibility, Izuku says as he paces, frantically typing away on the laptop perched precariously on one forearm. As it turns out, in this world, Katsuki and Izuku share Katsuki's office. Not officially, as they're both too popular as heroes for all the paperwork to fit in one office, but it's their unspoken agreement that Katsuki's office is where they spend the majority of their time. Considering this, or once this was explained to Katsuki by an expectedly timid Izuku, it was the obvious choice when they decided they needed somewhere to hunker down and research what they had found at the DHA building. What if the explosion wasn't quirk-related at all? What if someone just made a bomb of nitroglycerin and expected us to research quirks? This could all be to throw us off the trail. Katsuki PPS a considering eyebrow, shifts lower into his, a term used loosely of course, office chair and adjusts the laptop perched on his, again, used loosely, beautiful mahogany desk. At least the other him has good taste. If it was just a bomb component, then the smell would not have been so strong it would have been mixed in with the other chemicals within the bomb. I could smell it like I had set off the DMN thing myself. Not to mention remote control nitroglycerin bombs are stupid expensive, so if someone just wanted to bomb some sheet they'd find a cheaper and easier way. Quirk means the nitroglycerin's free, more likely for someone to use. More accessible. And this is the first solid lead you've gotten this whole case. So chill the F out and keep looking. He's almost out of breath for talking so much, but when Izuku frowns at the reminder that they still don't have any suspects or evidence, and glances back at his computer with clear contemplation, Katsuki counts it as worthwhile. 2 more heroes have been forced to shut down their agencies in the last day alone, and even more are skittish due to this new bombing. They don't have time to dance around. You have a point, Izuku relents. But we've been searching for hours already and nothing has come up. They could have been born in another country and moved here when they were older. Then their quirk wouldn't be in Japan's registry. Heaving a sigh, because Izuku is technically right, Katsuki massages his temple. We won't know unless we FING try. So keep looking. Izuku pursues his lips, but nods and goes back to typing regardless. Katsuki isn't sure how he feels about this Izuku being easier to sway than the endlessly obnoxious Deku he's used to. They search for hours, slow going as it is. There have already been a few news stories about the bombing, but no major investigations or DHA movements have begun yet, which Katsuki finds odd. When they had first realized that it was likely a quirk causing the bombings, Katsuki and Izuku had immediately informed the DHA. If the informed bureaucrats managed to get their fat heads out of their fat buttes any time within the last 3 hours, something should be getting done with the new information. Public searches, increased security, or, in the case of Izuku and Katsuki, a thorough scouring of quirk registries. Apparently not, though. So Katsuki and Izuku keep searching on their own. When the day starts to slip into night, when they close the shades and opt for lamplight instead of sunlight as they continually harass the internet for information, there's a sudden pounding knock on the office door. Izuku almost jumps out of his skin. He's nervous and on edge over this whole thing, perhaps due to the nature of the quirk they're looking for. Regardless, Katsuki hasn't seen him act like such a PP since he's been here. With Izuku's jumpiness, it's up to Katsuki to cross the office and pull open the door. Ashido grins back. She looks the same as ever, if a little taller and with hair a little longer than Katsuki remembers. But that could be his own fault. A giddy Kaminari and a resigned Kirishima are held in place by her strong grip, one hand for each of them. Ah, Ashido-san. Katsuki can't tell if that was a greeting or if Izuku had simply stuttered as usual. What are you doing here? Don't sound too excited to see us, Kirishima quips from behind Ashido. Izuku immediately flushes and rushes to apologize, but Ashido cuffs him over the head. Shut up, don't be rude. Kirishima shuts up, and Ashido drags him and Kaminari into the office without preamble. We saw what happened on the news. Figured you boys hadn't eaten all day, probably since you're too busy trying to find a suspect or make a bulletin board or something, Ashido begins. She bounces happily on the ball of her feet and there's a sparkle in her night black scara. Kirishima takes it upon himself to run a finger over the surface of Katsuki's desk, looking for dust. He finds none, not even a speck. Kaminari takes an intentional step forward, chest puffed. So, it's our duty as pro-heroes and the original members of the Baku squad. Katsuki physically cringes. Apparently, some things don't change no matter what world he's in, to ensure that you guys eat a good meal and get in adequate amounts of PDA today. I mean really? You two haven't grossed out any civilians by making out in a park for weeks. Kaminari finishes his little speech with a flourish, bowing with a twisted wave of his hand as Ashido and Kaminari dissolve into hysterics. Heart-pounding, Katsuki faces the knowledge that in this world he and Izuku are a gross PDA-happy couple, and knowing this has made his face red and put a stupid pleasant warmth at the tips of his ears. Out of anger, of course. He's angry. Like usual. FING hell. Through her giggles, Ashido manages, I wouldn't call their observers grossed out. And helpful as ever, Kirishima adds, seriously, you guys should make it pay-per-view. All right. Katsuki shouts. He does it to assert himself, because the conversation is getting away from him, and not because there's a twisting heat in his gut and a fiery blush on his face. Really. Izuku isn't faring much better. Kaminari has bounded up to him and has an arm thrown amicably around his shoulder, trying to get him to open back up from where he's hunched in on himself from embarrassment. Scarred hands cover flushed cheeks and Katsuki has the stupid urge to wrap his fingers around Izuku's wrist and tug until he can fully appreciate the alluring hue of his shy blush. Clearing his throat, Katsuki relents. We can get F&G food, just chill about it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Ashido whoops and gives Kirishima an aggressive high five, which ends with Kirishima howling in pain. Oh, you got acid on me again. Sorry. You know it happens when I'm happy I can't control it. Kaminari is unperturbed by Kirishima's first-degree pinky burn and shakes Izuku excitedly for no other reason than that he can. Katsuki's brain bleeds a little. Idiots in one world, idiots in all of them. As long as we don't go to Kenichi's. That place is F&G gross. Katsuki huffs. His nose is wrinkling just thinking about the shitty, sodium-rich ramen Deku makes him eat when he gets to choose where they go out for their monthly. We were childhood friends and high school rivals and are now vague acquaintances who don't know how to bridge the awkward gap between us lunches. Not that he can make Katsuki do anything. It's simply a matter of protest. And if Katsuki is simply so exhausted that he can't muster up more than a simple, half-butted explosion while he's being dragged against his will, that's simply too unfortunate to change. Ashido gives him a strange look. What do you mean? That place closed down 2 years ago. A giant rock fell on it during one of your fights and they just never reopened, remember? A viscous sense of satisfaction has Katsuki grinning, probably making him look even more unhinged than usual. If there was anything that could improve this weird alternate reality, it would be Kenichi's reduced to dirt and dust. He scoffs, insists, "Course I remember, soft scrub. Just making sure you're not getting any ideas. I'm not eating in rubble." It's a bit strange, doesn't really smooth over the bump, but everyone accepts it easily enough. Without Katsuki noticing, Izuku has approached so they stand shoulder to shoulder, and he pinches Katsuki's arm in warning. Katsuki scowls at him with sharp disdain. He's not an idiot, he won't F&G expose them. Ashit complains at the new nickname, "Don't you have enough for us already?" But they go out nonetheless. As it turns out, there's a festival going on in the center of the city when they leave Katsuki's building. It's a celebration of dragons, and there are wonderful paper lanterns decorated with faux dragon claws strung all around the city. Giant torches rest imposingly atop wooden dragon figures, lighting the city with a fiery hue against the darkened, sleepy blue of the late evening sky. Additionally, people have donned detailed dragon masks, complete with overgrown fangs and expressions of pure deity, and a few frenzied entertainers rush by them, twisting a papier-mâché red dragon through intricate twists and turns. There's loud folk-style music, bursting with lively drums and heavy percussion, and as they walk closer to the heart of the city, shouting street vendors of all sorts. At some point, Izuku grabs his hand. Katsuki doesn't hesitate, doesn't have time to, simply pulls the other man closer to him and ensures his fingers have intertwined softly with Izuku's. It's what a good husband would do, after all. They come to the restaurant Ashido chose for them, a stout brick building with hardy vines curling along its edges, and the distinct smell of fresh cooked noodles and SPD vegetables wafting from inside. It takes a moment to get them seated, but when the people recognize who they are, they're immediately ushered into a cozy booth in the back. Katsuki and Izuku end up on one side, while Kirishima and Kaminari slide into the other. Ashido complains, loudly, but pulls up a chair nonetheless. Disgruntled, she insists, "This is sexism. Not my fault you're too slow." Kaminari sticks his tongue out petulantly. Ashido gets retribution by flicking acid into his hair, and he immediately panics, hands flying to his scalp and crying about split ends. Luckily, they shut up when a waiter comes by to take their orders. Drinks all around and Katsuki orders a plate of spicy appetizers for the table that Ashido insists she'll eat. She didn't get to be the number 9 hero by being a coward. Regardless of how Izuku wrinkles his nose in distaste. Katsuki tells Izuku that he'll eat a mint later, so that when they kiss he won't have to taste it again, and the 3 idiots cheer as Izuku flushes redder than one of the papier-mâché dragons from the festival. "You two are disgustingly adorable," Ashido laments, stretching up her arms and almost kicking Kaminari as she elongates herself. Kaminari helpfully adds, "It makes me want to vomit," and Katsuki really does kick him. But he deserved it, and all's fair in love and beating Kaminari. Thank you, we really appreciate it. And, even if the comment was sarcastic, Izuku looks like he does. He's comfortable, settled snugly into Katsuki's side. When did that happen? Freckled cheeks flushed from the warm atmosphere of the restaurant and the attention he's been getting from his husband, who isn't really his husband, but who is being unfairly convincing in regards to acting as one. The waiter comes back with his professional flourish, brandishing their drinks and the appetizers, and jots down their entrees as they order. He's gone just as quickly as he came. This looks amazing. Ashido loudly exclaims before digging in like a rabid dog. Apparently they're spicier than she expected, though, because her face immediately steams red and Katsuki is laughing 2 seconds after she stuffed her face with the first bite. They will hout, she manages through irritated lips, tears forming in her wide eyes, before gulping down her entire wine glass, and flagging down a waiter for more liquids of any kind. Watching this catastrophe, Kaminari slowly closes his mouth and lowers the huge bite he had ready to go. Kirishima, ever more good-natured than the world deserves, pats him on the back in consolation, muttering, "At least you didn't eat it first." Katsuki lets himself grin and pull the plate closer. He's completely happy to indulge in the food himself. It looks delicious, not covered in gross oils or fats in the least. As he's eating, Izuku elbows him in the side and jokes, "I really won't kiss you if you taste like a spice trade." Something irrationally close to irritation ticks up Katsuki's spine. They aren't really married. Izuku is simply returning the joke Katsuki had made earlier for the sake of their friends. Maybe he's even made this joke hundreds of times with his Katsuki. Maybe it's an inside humor thing that no one else can be expected to understand. But Katsuki is growing so comfortable around this man. He's everything Katsuki imagines Deku would be if Katsuki hadn't been such a twisted bastard all their lives. If Katsuki hadn't let his destructive self ruin everything like always. In this world, Izuku is Katsuki's, and Katsuki is the #1 hero, and Toshinori is still around. It's as perfect as good can get. Except for the bombings and the instability in the hero world, of course, but there haven't been any casualties due to these issues so far, and so Katsuki's conscience is clean. His mind isn't. He wants Izuku, and the teriyaki cinnamon atmosphere of this small restaurant and the familiarity of, he'll admit, his closest friends and the openness with which Izuku is flirting all work on him at once. He turns to face Izuku, slowly, eyes dropping, and leans in, sliding his hand up Izuku's body with intention until he has a commanding grasp on his chin. Izuku's breath hitches, eyes unfocus, and he looks mesmerized as Katsuki leans closer. "What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?" There's a palpable tension between them, hot and inviting as the rest of the world fades away as if covered by a curtain. It's just Katsuki slowly leaning closer, breathing heavier, and Izuku letting him. "What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?" When their lips brush, Katsuki's heart stops. His entire body screams to pull Izuku into his lap and kiss him stupid, right here, right now, finally. But instead he lets their lips brush once, twice, and pulls back. Katsuki flushes, hands still tingling from where it grips Izuku's chin, never taking his eyes away from the incandescent green ones locked onto his. "You sure about that?" he asks hoarsely. Izuku, who still looks a bit dazed, simply nods slowly and his lips drop open, confused. Katsuki's eyes follow the movement and he forces himself to drop his hand and turn away fully. Sound returns like a thunderclap, both men shot back into reality, where their table mates are staring at them, gobsmacked, except for Ashido, who wears a sheet-eating grin, and the rest of the restaurant mutters amongst itself, catering to numerous hungry patrons all wired from the festival. Katsuki clears his throat just as Kirishima mutters, "Pay-per-view." "Heard you the first time, shitty face." Katsuki barks back defensively. He feels electric, hands shaking, unmoored. If he were to turn to the side again, he won't. It's too dangerous for him and his slipping self-control right now. He bets that Izuku would be in a similar state. Kirishima balks. "What happened to shitty hair?" "You're pissing me off." Katsuki shrugs through another bite of the appetizer. They really are good. He'll have to get the name of this restaurant for when he finally gets back to his own world. For some reason, the thought sends a light pang of something empty through him. He decides not to dwell on it. That's not fair. Kirishima is still protesting, even as Kaminari laughs, and Ishido, who had bravely hazarded another bite of the appetizer and almost died for it, barters with a waiter for another cup of water, trying everything because I don't care that it's for another table, I need water now. They don't pay you to kill your customers, do they? Who said it had to be? Katsuki raises an eyebrow. He's just joking, obviously, but Izuku lays a hand on his arm and he immediately retreats a bit, relaxes into the leather booth. He can't not when he's being touched so intentionally by the man next to him. Izuku's hand stays on his arm for longer than it probably needs to as the evening progresses at a slow waltz. Finally, after a good bit of conversation and Katsuki polishing off the rest of that infamous appetizer, their entrees arrive, along with another glass of water for Ishido. She glares at the waiter as he brings it, and the man looks scared for his probably pathetic life. When he scurries away with an adequate amount of terror, she nods happily. Kirishima rolls his eyes. You're a menace. Sure, but Kaminari is the one using 2 noodles as a Fu Manchu. Ishido deadpants in return, sipping her new water with a queenly air she wears impossibly well. Unfortunately, it's true, Kaminari's eyes are squinted, like an old man without glasses, and he's got 2 smaller pieces of sweet and sour noodles hanging from spaces just above his upper lip. You must learn, young one, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, he says wisely, ostensibly instructing Izuku, who furrows his brow and tilts his head. Isn't that Isaac Newton? You're Asian and somehow that's still racist, Katsuki says, disappointed, before sighing and starting on his own food. Kaminari goes to start again. You must learn. Before Kirishima shoves the fried steak that came with his meal into Kaminari's open mouth, causing him to choke unattractively and drop the noodles. My noodles! He cries in mourning, crestfallen, distraught, entirely ruined for the rest of his life. Shove it, Sparky. Eat your veggies. Katsuki threatens slowly, leveling him with a patent glare, which causes Kaminari to pale, nod, and eat quietly, head down, fallen noodles forgotten. Overall, the dinner goes well. By the time they're stumbling home, happy and a bit tipsy, bombed building momentarily forgotten, Katsuki can't help but let himself lean into Izuku, knowing the man can support his weight. And Katsuki is supporting Izuku right back, more so as they keep walking, because he's obviously more drunk than Katsuki. Kaminari, Kirishima, and Ishido had left them after the restaurant, claiming that they wanted to go explore the festival, even if Izuku asked to go back home because he was tired. However, despite them claiming innocence, the manic gleam in Ishido's eyes put Katsuki ill at ease. Especially when she sidled up to hug him, an oddity on its own, and whispered, "Use the evening wisely, love birds. I'll leave my car at the agency overnight, so don't worry about anyone interrupting." And before Katsuki could retort, she flounced off, leading the way into the multichrome crowds of flaming dragon masks and ear-pounding drums. So here Katsuki is now, practically heaving Izuku up every step. Eventually, it becomes tired. Katsuki stops them, has a short argument in his head that is no argument at all, before turning so that his flushed ears are hidden and kneeling in front of Izuku, offering him his back. Get on. He can't see Izuku's face, but his own is turning a disgusting pink to match the way his heart is twisting excitedly in his chest, remembering their almost kiss from earlier. Good FNG hell. This world is making him stupid. A moment of hesitation, some indecisive shuffling, before Izuku, quietly, through the breath of a whisper, finally says, "Okay," and then there's legs around Katsuki's waist and arms around his neck. He stands, pushing his emotions down. Instead he focuses on how Izuku is easier to carry than he expected. "You're light," he comments gruffly, trying to distract himself from the way he can feel Izuku's cheek nuzzle into the nape of his neck. "You been training properly? You always come with me. Shouldn't you know?" Izuku giggles like this is funny, and it takes Katsuki stopping in his tracks to realize what he said. The arms around Katsuki's neck tighten. Not enough to hurt, but enough that it shows Izuku's inner turmoil. Sorry, Izuku apologizes, barely a whisper. You're not my Katsuki. This one time, Katsuki doesn't comment on the way his name is said possessively. He starts walking again, bumps Izuku up a little and keeps following the unsteady sidewalk back to the agency. Sorry. I look like him. Katsuki can feel Izuku crack a small smile. It makes everything brighter, but then again maybe the streetlights down here are just newer? That doesn't explain the rosy glow. But perhaps the alcohol might, if anyone wants to give Katsuki more time to justify himself. Talk like him too. Giving a sharp grin of his own, Katsuki agrees. Yeah. Probably. He feels warm. He blames it on the alcohol. He keeps walking, and they lapse into comfortable silence, allowing the stars and the wind to have the last conversations of the evening. Then, not 10 feet from the agency door, Katsuki swears on his mother's life he hears Izuku mutter something that sounds heart-stoppingly similar to, "I'd have married you." The world stops. Katsuki certainly does, for the third time on their trek back. What? He asks, unsteady. He feels dizzy all of a sudden, heart thudding obnoxiously loud, and he begins to worry for both of them because of how much his hands are sweating. Izuku doesn't reply. Katsuki tries again. What? But nothing. Then, slowly, a light sound, and then a stronger, more confident one, and then Izuku is snoring and he's fallen asleep on Katsuki's back. He's asleep. Izuku is asleep, so Katsuki must have just imagined what he'd heard. He can wipe this stupid blush off his face, which was honestly only there because of the exertion of carrying Izuku 2 whole blocks, honestly, and carry on with his DM evening. His steps feel like lead as he walks into the agency. He nods absently to the exhausted receptionist, who doesn't comment on the top 2 heroes' position, and keeps his face a stony mask, even if he feels like he's being attacked by a hurricane inside. He lays Izuku on the plush couch, which, as it turns out, has a folded mattress in it. That's different from Katsuki's office, and in the private bathroom attached to the office there's 2 toothbrushes and toothpaste, which aren't present in his world either. Katsuki purses his lips. Married couple doing hero work means lots of time at the office. He knows how that goes. He knows it alone. Katsuki runs a shaky hand through his hair and steps, with as little sound as he possibly can, into the adjoined bathroom. Izuku didn't brush his teeth, but he's out like a light, so Katsuki will make him do it twice in the morning, once before breakfast, once after. A little voice tells him that he's going soft for not waking Izuku up and making him brush his teeth, but Katsuki brushes his own aggressively until it shuts the F up. There aren't pajamas in the office. Katsuki figures that Izuku and his husband, his eye twitches a bit, probably just sleep in their clothes or hero costume, in case they need to be up at any minute. Tonight there's a full moon, and it offers its sweet illumination generously to all the surfaces in the high-rise office, dipping the entirety of the small space in a downright pleasant baby blue, cut only by the gentle starlight interspersed within the hue. There's room on the bed for another person. Katsuki sleeps on the adjacent couch. He did carry on with his evening, but you'll be pleased to know that his blush stayed firmly put. It begins when Katsuki shoves Izuku awake. Katsuki himself has been up since the sun clawed its way over the mountainous horizon, so he's had hours to scour the databases in hopes of finding a suspect. And find he did. He kicks Izuku off the couch, finding sweet satisfaction in the yelp of pain he lets out as he collides harshly with the chilled morning floor. Get up, nerd, I found the bomber. This perks Izuku up. Suddenly he's sitting straight up on the floor, absently rubbing his elbow from where it had fought the hardwood and lost. Who is it? Do I know them? Have you told anyone else yet? God, Katsuki almost forgot how annoying Izuku can be. He almost wishes he had kept Izuku asleep just for the sake of Katsuki's forming headache. Slow down with the questions and get ready, I'll tell you what you need to know, Katsuki grunts. Izuku nods and obliges. Imoryu. Her quirk, nitricide, turns her blood plasma into nitroglycerin that she can detonate on command. Her hair, blood, fingernails, and limbs are all bombs. Her parents were killed in a fight between the drowned hero Water Whip and an unnamed villain. Water whip accidentally caused a seaside apartment building to collapse. Imura's parents were home while she was at a friend's, and the hero was never held accountable. In fact, he's still number 8 on the DHA hero rankings. And Imura Yu was on medication that treats schizophrenia for a time, but her medical records note that she no longer takes that prescription. Katsuki suspects she's planting bombs of her DNA at the DHA buildings and blowing them up in some sort of sick retribution for her parents. Self-injurious, sure. Gross, definitely. But Katsuki isn't here to critique the aesthetics of a traumatized teenager that thinks bombing government buildings will beget revenge. She's dangerous and she needs to be dealt with. I got her work address. That's where she'll be, Katsuki says, moving around the office and picking up anything he needs before they head off. We doing this sheet on our own or you want to grab backup? Izuku scrambles up from the floor, head twisting like there's somewhere to look, and he seems upset but not surprised with Katsuki's complete disregard of his questions. Her? So it's a woman? Turning to Izuku, Katsuki slides the last grenade on his utility belt and relays all the important facts. Ikumayu, 18, lives with her aunt because both her parents died in a fight between Water Whip and an unarmed villain. Has schizophrenia but doesn't take her meds. Realization sparks in Izuku's eyes. It's enough information. He can understand that they're dealing with a vigilante, and she's young, and she's angry. She won't be an easy target. Quirk. Izuku stands and rushes to the bathroom. Katsuki talks to him while he brushes his teeth. Similar to mine, nitroglycerin in her blood plasma makes her hair, nails, and skin explosive. Don't forget to brush twice. Katsuki barks out the last part with no room for whiny arguments, and it settles something in him, like proving he's still someone right to himself. He doesn't really understand it, and so he ignores it, because there are bigger problems right now. Izuku comes out of the bathroom, wiping his mouth with the back of a scarred hand. So, he says, she could cut off an arm and have a bomb large enough to decimate the city? Twisted, yes, but when dealing with insanity things tend to be. With a grimace, Katsuki nods. Izuku nods in response. They're on the same page. We'll have backup ready, but go in on our own. Does she work in the city? Izuku crosses the office and reaches into a filing cabinet, pulling out a spare hero costume, probably kept for occasions such as these. Yeah, Katsuki starts, but is cut off abruptly by Izuku pulling up his shirt and tossing it over his head. He looks up at Katsuki, confused as to why he suddenly fell silent, and when he realizes what he just did, Izuku flushes and squeaks. Sorry. I just sorry. Izuku continues to stutter and apologize all the way into the bathroom, slamming the door behind him. A telltale thump sounds a second later, definitely Izuku dropping an embarrassed forehead against the wood. I forgot again, he mutters, so quiet that Katsuki can barely hear him. Through the heavy blush on his cheeks, Katsuki grunts out, chill. It's fine. He has to clear his throat before he can continue. I checked her work schedule, so unless she's skipping she'll be there. Izuku agrees from behind the door and a second later he's back in the office, dressed and ready to go. They make their way down the office and tell people they need backup. Imura works at a small grocery store owned by her aunt and uncle in the heart of the city, and the plan is bring her into custody and question her there. Both Katsuki and Izuku have Quirk restraining cuffs on their person, ready to use when she is apprehended. The ride is tense, and nobody says a word unless they are informing another about the plan. Quaint is the best word to describe the store. It's cozier than a gas station, but just as beat up. Dilapidated wood beckons in customers, and small shrubbery groans for maintenance out front. The door is open, with a calligraphy sign hung up to announce just that, and the smell of fresh bread and pumpkin dances from the shop. It's cute. And a terrorist is manning the register. Katsuki and Izuku had their backup stay a block away, ready to rush in at any moment, but far enough away that they're not crowding the heroes or the suspect. When they reach the building, Katsuki walks in first. He contemplates pulling out his hero license as a valid ID, but decides it's not necessary, she'll know who they are. No customers bother them. It's still early in the day, and so it is just Katsuki, Izuku, and Imura Yu in the store. Sure enough, She is where Katsuki expected her to be, languishing in boredom behind the store counter. She is short, on the stouter side, with ruby cheeks and thick black hair that swings to her knees. Katsuki suspects it's for ammunition. The vest she wears is tacky, if one is being generous, and her smile seems pasted on. Emptiness swallows her eyes, dragged down her pale cheeks by eye bags so deep they're near purple. Welcome to Imura's Goods and Groceries. We're currently having a sale on our homemade muffins, 20% off, if you're interested. She's so unassuming and uneasiness settles in Katsuki's chest. She's off, there is something poignantly off about her, and it sends Katsuki on alert. There is no doubt in his mind that this is their bomber. Acting now is essential. Izuku recognizes that, and steps forward with the new news. Stepping forward and keeping his quirk cuffs in hand, Izuku tells her, Imura, you are under arrest for multiple counts of domestic terrorism. The air shifts, Imura shifts, she becomes visibly hostile. I'm sorry, she says politely, pasted smile flickering, but I have no idea what you mean. She isn't aware that an innocent person would be horrified in the face of a false terrorism accusation. Imura is not horrified, because all she cares about is appearing polite and genuine, because she's guilty. It's painfully obvious and Katsuki has no time for this. Cut the sheet and put your hands behind your head, Katsuki growls, allowing a few pointed explosions to whisper from his palms. That gets her. She drops the hollow smile, takes a step back and her hand moves. It's barely noticeable, but it's there. Imura is not stupid. She knew she could be caught and she's clearly prepared for this contingency. Katsuki barely has time to shout, Izuku! Before Imura lobs a ball of hair at where Izuku was just standing and it detonates in a flame of screaming sparks. If he hadn't been knocked over by Katsuki throwing himself at him, Izuku would have been dead. Katsuki, for his part, is really sad now. When they both scramble up again, Imura is gone, and then shouting begins from outside and then the sound of an explosion shaking the earth. F-! Katsuki shouts, dashing out the door with Izuku hot on his heels. Imura is dashing down the street but there are cars following her, so she can't get far. Or, there were cars following her, but Imura pulls another ball of hair from her ugly vest pocket and lobs it at the car, and suddenly she is not being bothered by any more government vehicles. Follow her, Izuku instructs before bounding towards her. No sheet, Katsuki growls before setting off his own explosions. He doesn't like how similar his quirk is to this villain. It puts an itch under his skin, and he knows that when she's apprehended he'll have a few fing words for her. Explosions are his thing. Through the winding streets, they pursue her. She is surprisingly agile, but Katsuki and Izuku are the wonder duo, the two top heroes. She didn't really have a chance, just a hope. Izuku drops in front of her, uncaring about the rocky concrete he smashes like glass beneath his feet. She pulls up short, surprised, and goes to dash down a side alley, but Katsuki is there, and before she can react there are quirk-restricting cuffs on her wrists. No more bombs, no more running. Izuku pants lightly, slightly winded but not anywhere close to what a normal person would be. You're coming with us. But Imura won't go down easy. She thrashes like an animal in a trap against where Katsuki holds her by the arms behind her back. You have the wrong person. Let me go. Katsuki gives a derisive snort and tugs her towards the squad of cars that are now approaching, brought on Izuku's call. Right? Because innocent people bomb cars with their hair, Katsuki sneers. He's all too happy to deposit her in the back of a police car. Listening to her talk is making that Izuku-induced headache from earlier return. And Katsuki just aches, he just hurts, and he's tired but now they're almost done. They'll question her and lock her up and the DHA can get back on their feet. Distracted with watching the scene, Katsuki almost forgets that Izuku is here too, until he comes up next to Katsuki as the police handle the suspect and talk to witnesses. Now the hard part, Izuku murmurs. Katsuki is so tired, and so proud they've caught her, and he wants to touch him, and he suddenly remembers that in this world he is Izuku's husband. That's why we do it together, Katsuki replies quietly, slipping an explosive hand into a scarred one. Izuku's shoulders crumple just slightly and Katsuki feels his heart swell past the irritation and annoyance and pride in his throat. Izuku squeezes his hand. Katsuki wants to kiss him and never stop, because right now, in this moment, he is happy. Katsuki is happy. This has been a good day, and not much ca'll improve it. Then, Katsuki, Izuku says, considering, I think at some point soon we should renew our marriage vows. All the air in Katsuki's lungs rushes out. It rushes out and into the open arms of the sky, now watching over a city freed from one more villain. Renew? You can't renew what hasn't been done at least once. Izuku knows that he's knows, so he's saying something else, something completely different. He's saying, FNG nerd. Katsuki tries his best to avoid it, but his voice cracks like the ground and Izuku gently avoids it. Why not? If Katsuki had any doubts about this, about letting Izuku have this power over him, the beatific smile that lights up Izuku's face is so worth it that it hurts. When? Now, Katsuki says, letting himself have this, he can have this, he can. Izuku kisses back immediately. It's so sweet and so warm and Katsuki has no defense against it. He's wanted this since they fought at Ground Beta, since they were stupid sheets playing in their neighborhood, since, hi, I'm Izuku. I live down the street. Calloused hands slide against his cheeks and Katsuki wraps an arm around Izuku's waist, tilting his head and drowning in it. This is perfect. Katsuki's mind has never been so empty, focused on Izuku and Izuku alone. Katsuki breaks away because he has to say it. It has to be said so it can be heard. Izuku Midoriya. God, his eyes are beautiful. Will you marry me? Izuku smiles. Yes. The second they get back to Izuku's apartment, Katsuki's lips are a constant pressure against Izuku's. They simply kiss for an uncountable while, until a jarring sound cracks through the air. The knock on Izuku's apartment door should have sent them apart, but instead Katsuki lingers and feels Izuku pulled against him for just a bit longer. Warm heat, Izuku's hands. It's pure bliss, and maybe Katsuki can stay a bit longer, press a little harder. Katsuki. You need to get the door, Izuku murmurs. Maybe you think so, is what Katsuki shoots back with, even as his hands drift down and away from Izuku's trim waist with the intention of his body following. Stay. Izuku giggles. He giggles, all demure coquette, and it's pure addiction to Katsuki. He can't get to the door fast enough, impatient and already set at whatever unfortunate soul is on the other side. The door swings open and Katsuki only has a second to recognize the villain who had started all this, but when he does his heart seizes in his throat. There is just enough time for a grimy grin to slide across the villain's face before his hand shoots out like a bullet and the world is dark chapter text. Pain is a funny thing. It is shy, strikes in intervals before settling over the body like a blanket. It blinds the eyes and stills the hands, and Katsuki has no idea where he is. Why, Ground Zero? What are you doing here? That stupid sardonic voice, it's the villain, the ugly piece of shit that sent Katsuki to that alternate universe in the first place. Sudden memories tap at Katsuki's shoulder before throwing themselves back into his head and then he remembers, Katsuki remembers, and he forces his blazing eyes open. At first Katsuki only sees a mottled slate gray, and then he realizes he's looking at the pavement. And then he realizes he's on his knees with his forehead pressed against the tarmac. He is not restrained. Pain is the only thing keeping him inert. The only question that comes easily to Katsuki's racing mind is, where's Izuku? But apparently, this is the wrong thing to ask, because the villain lets out a gleeful laugh. He claps his hands together like a proud parent watching their child take a few hesitant first steps. Is that your only concern, Ground Zero? Was the world you saw that nice? The villain's teasing is FNG annoying. Katsuki hadn't missed his voice, and the pain is becoming something closer to bearable. So Katsuki pushes himself up onto his knees and stares at the villain with all the fury he possesses. He sees the world, and sees that he is in that same place he fought the villain all those days ago. Now it is night, and the moon watches their interaction with bated breath. His appearance has not changed. In fact, if Katsuki recalls correctly, the ugly fucker is wearing the same sheet he was when they last met. Katsuki's first concern is whether or not he's back in his own world, and how the villain got him back here and… Wait, was the world you saw that nice? There are only so many things that could mean, and dread enshrouds each of them. Something is off. Where the F did you send me? The villain does not answer. Instead he hums to himself and paces a bit, still ecstatic, and Katsuki has the sudden sick awareness that there are no bodies around them. It is simply him, the villain, and the VYR sky. Katsuki tries again, with a different question this time. Tell me something, B. Katsuki spits, not surprised to see blood accompany his saliva. Where are all the civilians? The villain stops in his steps, turns to Katsuki. His eyes are bloodshot or crazed, and his wiry neck still barely supports that big butt head. No, Ground Zero, you tell me. Was it not fulfilling? He's as gross as always, and Katsuki's sweaty hands tighten into fists. Speak plainly, BSRD, Katsuki growls. His mind is firing on all cylinders, trying to right itself in the new situation. There's no people, just pain, and it's night, and Katsuki is likely back in his own world. He didn't even get to tell Izuku goodbye. And the villain is still talking. Was it not everything you've ever wished for? Whisked away to a perfect world where you were the star. You saved the day, got the boy, made your dead mentor proud. You walked into a problem that was ripping apart their society and calmed it with your bare, destructive hands. Everything, down to the statues in the parks, was to your liking. Every restaurant, every civilian, every blade of grass. It was all for you and you loved it. Realization wraps Katsuki in her devastating embrace, and the world falls gently apart. It wasn't real, Katsuki says on a stray breath. He doesn't know who he's trying to convince, because even though he is now aware that he's spent the last almost week in a fantasy world, it isn't sitting correctly in his brain. Not that his brain is doing much at the moment. It's all white noise, it's all empty space. Your quirk, Katsuki whispers, letting both of them ignore the way his voice is now unstable, edging towards shaky, even if it lights a renewed fire in the villain's eyes. Forcing himself to remember what's important, Katsuki croaks out, "Where are the civilians?" Katsuki really hates the villain's smile. Yet he still wears it proudly as he says with full consideration, "No, Ground Zero, not everyone is as strong as you. Not everyone can handle having their dreams come true and then losing it. Good FNGF dash. Shiv dash good. You kill them?" The villain steps closer, leans down. Once the mind is broken, the body is of no use, he whispers, and the worst part is that he's right. He's right, and he killed those people, and Katsuki was here and did nothing about it, too caught in his own head. It's as much Katsuki's fault as it is the villain's. Impossible rage explodes inside Katsuki, it's in his throat, and it shakes his arms and his legs, and he wants to move but finds he can't. The pain is still immobilizing him. It must be part of this ugly FS quirk. He needs more time. Katsuki needs more, he needs to… You sent them to a fantasy world then killed them? Why? Katsuki's head is spinning, because he just can't understand. How insane does a person have to be, how twisted and deranged, to do something as cruel as that and smile the whole time? For the first time, a distinct frown slants the villain's face. He seems upset that Katsuki is fing up his message, muddling his intent. I told you. I'm a generous man, I give generous gifts. Katsuki remembers what the villain had said, oh so long ago. He had said, "You're worthy of my blessing, aren't you? Strong one. Did you not enjoy yourself, Ground Zero?" He asks casually. Katsuki doubts the F could see what he was dreaming about, but both of them know that Katsuki was caught like a fly in honey. It wasn't real. You killed them, and they died, and their FING dream world wasn't even FING real, Katsuki shouts, speaking to himself as much as to the villain. He's angry, burning with unspeakable anger, because who does this effing psychopath think he is? And how could Katsuki fall for it, hook, line, and sinker? The villain coos grotesquely, as if Katsuki is a poor, misguided thing. He leans down and places a governing hand on Katsuki's head, wonders with kindness in his eyes. Does that really matter so much? At this poisonous implication and everything raging it touches, an important piece inside Katsuki snaps. He's overwhelmed, his head is silent from how loud his thoughts are screaming, and he feels something tangible break and crash and explode with a satisfying finality. Seems that his limbs can move just fine. He launches himself at the man and it devolves into a horrifying mess of blood and torn throats, from both screaming and pulling, pulse fading and justice finally falling weightedly into its rightful place in the world. Katsuki starts hitting and doesn't stop. Once he had knocked the villain down, he didn't stop. He kept hitting, not even using his explosions. Katsuki finds that once he starts bashing the man's face into the back of his skull, he can't stop. He just punches and punches and punches and punches and the man stands no chance. He's dead before Katsuki knows his name. Once he's gone, reduced to a mangled corpse on the pavement, Katsuki feels nothing. There's no sharp relief, no closing of a book and no banner that unfurls proclaiming victory. There's just cold biting into his skin and blood biting into his hands. He can't help it, he can't stop it. He falls apart and sobs and cries. Katsuki feels stupid, like when he was the reason All Might had to retire, like when he wasn't there to help the man in his final moments, natural causes be damned. He feels stupid like when he was in middle school, harassing Deku because he feared what the idiot could do to him. Deku has always had Katsuki in the palm of his hand. Katsuki has not always felt worthy of that. So as a thick, mournful feeling surrounds him, choking him relentlessly, Katsuki can do nothing but scream until his bloodied throat splits. He cries for everything he has and has not been. For everything he has and has failed to do. He cries because he let himself love a world that was not real. He cries because he was so easy to fool. All it took was Izuku's shining eyes and a glittering ring for Katsuki to relax and become the perfect target. It's too much. Katsuki is not capable of processing it at once. So he cries. Time and tears leave him eventually, unable to watch the pitiful display, and then Katsuki is truly alone. He isn't sure how long he stays there, overwhelmed and dripping snot and spit and blood, but eventually the hesitant sun peeks over the horizon. Eventually a soft hand lays on Katsuki's shoulder. The air he was breathing gets caught in his lungs. Turning around and locking eyes with Deku, his Deku, is an otherworldly experience. Kaken. His voice is different. Katsuki thought it was the same, but hearing it now, hearing his Deku speak when he's heard nothing but Izuku these past few days shakes him to his core. Katsuki is crying again before he realizes it's a possibility. Words will not come to him, stubbornly refuse to, and Katsuki does not force them. He is a shell of what he wants to be, a mess of golden ideals and viscera, and he knows Deku sees that. Deku knows him inside and out, as if he had built Katsuki with his own hands. And in some ways he had. As the tears wail from him, Katsuki's eyes shut against the flood. He wants to say Deku's name at least, but not even that is possible for him. He is simply this and nothing more. This is all he can manage for the moment. Then safe, warm arms collect him and cradle him against a soft, warm chest. Relief and anguish wash over Katsuki at once, and he hates himself for loving this, and hates himself for hating it. I've been looking for you. It's time to come home now, Kaken. Deku says quietly, sweetly, with all that heroic empathy ingrained into Deku's very being. You can tell me what happened later. Steps are being taken and the world is moving, not that Katsuki can see much through his tears. He expects them to get in a car, drive to Deku's apartment like that first day Katsuki had been trapped in the other world, but suddenly Deku is crouching and cracking the pavement with the force of his jump. Air rushes by them. Deku clutches Katsuki closer, like he's precious cargo, and then they're flying. Building to building, roof to roof, Deku flies, taking Katsuki away from where he was and bringing him somewhere better. Somewhere real. His groggy eyes open and immediately regret it. They're irritated from tears. Katsuki has not cried so much at once in years. He's in Deku's bedroom. The air is suddenly too thick to breathe because it looks painfully similar to the other bedroom that was never actually real. It wasn't real, none of it was. And yet Katsuki was caught like a child regardless. He has to get out. Stumbling out of the soft bed is an effort, but Katsuki is the number on a pro hero. He's a pro hero, maybe not the number one, but a pro, and he can get out of a DM in bedroom. The hallway looks similar too. Not the same, Katsuki sees that now, but similar. When he hears pattering from the kitchen, icy fear overwhelms him, and he is terrified of smelling blueberry pancakes, but Katsuki has never run from his problems and he won't start now. If he finds blueberry pancakes in there, then that's what he finds. He'll face it like the pro he is. But when Katsuki finally tumbles into the kitchen, moving like a drunken man possessed, there is no Izuku and there are no perfectly fluffy blueberry pancakes. There is just Deku, making store-bought oatmeal and burning toast because he's always been an awful cook. Deku's eyes turn to Katsuki, and relief crashes over him when he realizes that slimy fucker hadn't gotten the eyes right. Katsuki can see now the fake Izuku's eyes were a shade off. Deku smiles at him gently, always smiling, and scratches the back of his neck as he gestures to the toaster. Sorry, I know it's not much, but I wanted you to have something when why? I love you. Surprise paints itself in Deku's raised eyebrows and his lips shake as they part. He's keeping it together, but Katsuki can read him. Katsuki can always read him, and Deku wants to fall apart like usual. But instead, he just says, I love you too. Something sweet and right settles into place within Katsuki's chest. It starts as a tsunami and quiets to a drop of rain by the time it reaches his lungs. He takes a deep breath, steadies himself against the thrashing emotion, and lets his weary shoulders slouch with the exhale. Good. Deku is twitching with restrained energy, and the scars on his arms don't match Izuku's. Anger bubbles under his skin again. Izuku was a cheap replica, he wasn't Deku, he could never be Deku, and Katsuki fell for it anyway, but if he goes down that road then tears follow, so instead Katsuki clears his throat and lumbers over to the toaster. Shoulder to shoulder with Deku, feeling the warmth radiate from his body, Katsuki is complete. He pops the toaster and slides the pieces onto his plate. You burned it. Katsuki turns to Deku and then there is a soft kiss on his cheek. Deku pulls back like he's been burned, flushed and panicky. So sorry if that's overstepping. I know you just got back and you've been through a lot, but I just thought that maybe you Katsuki puts a hand on Deku's cheek and leans in, brushes their lips together in the gentlest touch of a kiss. It shuts Deku up. When Katsuki finally breaks away, after a few lingering moments, Deku is beet red. This is very sudden and I'm concerned about your mental well-being, he whispers. But when Katsuki shoots back with an, I love you, his only response is to steal another kiss and say it back. When they sit to eat, Katsuki is proved right. The toast is burnt. Katsuki throws his out while Deku smothers his in butter and still grimaces at the taste. They don't speak. They don't have to. They have each other, really, and, for the moment, it's more than enough. Until Deku, finished with his toast and oatmeal, begins to fidget and broaches the subject. Kaken. I know, Katsuki says. Deku nods, glances out the window, but does not seem satisfied. So Katsuki, perhaps just because he can, reaches across the table and steals Deku's hand. His eyes are on Katsuki in a flash, but there is nothing sharp there, only soft surprise before there is a reassuring squeeze to Katsuki's fingers. We'll talk about it eventually. But I need time, nerd. Can you give me that? He throws in the insult as a terrible attempt at normalcy, but Deku cracks a watery grin anyway. Of course, Kaken. Anything you want. Katsuki notices he didn't say need. It seems they're both learning how to interact with the other. They sit at the table for a while, enough that the sun begins to rise in the sky, before Deku suggests they clean up and they load the dishwasher together. In between one plate and the next, Deku says, the media is going crazy. Katsuki grunts. I'm sure they are. Izuku's oatmeal bowl is next, and he didn't finish up all the grains of oat. Katsuki washes them down the sink. Do you want my press team to deal with them? Maybe in one lifetime Katsuki would have raged against the implication of Deku's help, but now he simply ticks his lip down and puts the bowl in the dishwasher. No, he says, I'll meet with my people today. Okay, Deku agrees easily. He turns on the dishwasher and the low hum of its electricity filters through the air. The peaceful atmosphere pulls a sneer from Katsuki, and he can't help but ask, what? Not gonna tell me it's okay? I'll be fine with a little Randar? This seems to confuse Deku a bit, and he tilts his head in that way he does, lips pursing, and Katsuki wants to kiss him again because he finally can. He'll have to remind himself of that later. I don't know if you'll be okay. Heavy lead drops into Katsuki's stomach. The clouds twist lazily by and cheer when they drift past the ascending sun. Deku continues, but I do know that even if you aren't, I'll be here. I love you, Kaken, okay or not, and I won't leave you alone even if you try and force me to. Katsuki has to confess, he's never felt giddy, it's just not in his constitution as a person. But the light pockets of heady emotion rising in him like hot air feel like what he imagines it would be. Thing nerd. He huffs, and if it's a laugh, it's a laugh. The world keeps spinning and the moon does not explode. Deku's face lights up, he laughs too, then slides closer and pulls Katsuki into a hug without asking. And really, how is Katsuki not supposed to melt like ice on summer pavement? How is he not supposed to wrap his arms around Deku so tight they bruise? The embrace is secure and Deku is stroking up and down his back, and this is real. It's real. Katsuki is real, Deku is real. It's also so real. They hug, bask in each other's touch, before sliding apart slowly. Breakfast is finished. Katsuki thinks the toast was shoddy, but he can't complain about the company. Now the only thing left is the rest of his life. If you only walk straight ahead, then you will not get very far. Anton de Saint-Exupéry. Someone somewhere once said that sunny days are the best kind. But sunny days are full of indiscriminate heat, blazing rays of activity, and sometimes a person needs to slow down rather than speed up. Rainy days are wonderful for introspection. Cloudy days are more somber than anything else. A truly perfect day looks like today. Cloudless, sunless, rainless. Just the blue sky and eternity dancing lazily together. Been a while, huh? The grass loves these days too. It cheers and twists up towards the heavens. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to neglect you or whatever, but some sheet's been going down. Birds are partial to clear skies as well. It gives them an open path to fly through. I'm not the #1 hero, but I bet you can guess who it is. Annoying F-, isn't he? Really couldn't tell you why I keep him around. And people love clear skies, for they make for a wonderful canvas to stargaze upon. I miss you. There, I said it. Happy? I miss you every day. I wronged you and I never fixed it. I'm working to make you proud. But there are other uses for a clear day. Katsuki, for example, uses today to kneel before a decorative headstone and mourn. I'll make you proud. The day rolls on, unceasing and lovely, and Katsuki sits for as long as time allows him to, before a warm hand drops on his shoulder and a warmer voice says, Kaken. Katsuki doesn't turn, but he does lay a hand over Deku's. Their wedding rings make a pleasing sound when they brush against each other. I know. I'm almost done. A soft chuckle floats from behind him and the hand squeezes in reassurance. Katsuki's heart unwinds a bit, finds it easier to laze in his chest. Take your time, Deku whispers, and then he's gone, heading back to the car and leaving Katsuki to his own devices. When Deku leaves, it is just Katsuki, Toshinori, and the sky. Katsuki only has a few words left, itching to be said. I love him. I want to make him proud and I want to make you proud. I'm going to work harder and be better for both of you. I know that I don't always deserve him, God, if I deserve him at all. But I love him. I love him and I'm going to take good care of him, so don't worry about that. Katsuki bites his lip, clutches the flowers he holds tighter before he lets them go, sets them at Toshinori's feet. You can rest easy, old man. Deku and I have each other's backs for real this time. We'll be okay.